Chapter 1. Doctor, can I still be saved? What's wrong with me? Qin Guang rubbed his hands and blushed. He sat in the hospital and looked at the doctor in front of him, feeling extremely embarrassed. The young school doctor sitting in front of him, although half of her face was covered by a mask, looked at Qin Guang from head to toe with a meaningful gaze, making him feel uncomfortable all over. Student, your problem isn't serious. It's a normal physiological phenomenon for boys your age. You don't have to be too nervous. The female doctor seemed to be a little uneasy. She took a deep breath and said so. Although Qin Guang couldn't see her face, he could tell from the redness in her eyes that she was actually quite embarrassed. This kind of thing was really hard to talk about. Why did the school doctor on duty today have to be such a young girl? Did she not look at the almanac before going out? Okay. Thank you, doctor. I'll be going then. Don't I need to prescribe medicine? Since there was nothing else, he should hurry up and leave. The doctor stood up and shook the white coat on his body. Although his body was tightly covered, he still looked slender and well-proportioned. She didn't want to talk to this student at first, but she thought that a doctor should be like a parent, so she might as well say something. You don't need to take medicine, but you really should pay more attention. Qin Guang covered his face. He felt that there was a hidden meaning in her words. Pay attention to what? The female doctor opened her mouth to say something, but she suddenly stopped. She looked up at the girls queuing outside and thought for a moment. She took 2 steps forward and whispered into Qin Guang's ear. Student Qin Guang, you've been having problems for the past few days. It's a little too. Anyway, a boy's body will mature at 22 years old. You should try not to look at things that aren't good for your body and mind. You should also pay more attention to self-control. There's really nothing else. As the female doctor spoke, her fragrant and warm breath softly brushed against Qin Guang's ear. She just had to say such things. Qin Guang's face immediately turned red as he quickly covered his face and retreated. All right. I'll definitely pay more attention. Thank you, doctor. Walking out of the school hospital, he took a deep breath and reluctantly looked back at the school hospital. Old man, I'm wronged. I really haven't seen anything recently. For the past few days, he had been feeling that something was wrong with his body. Since 5 days ago, he had been having strange dreams all night, as if he had seen a ghost. As soon as he fell asleep, his mind would be in a trance, as if there was someone talking beside his ear endlessly. However, he could not clearly hear what the person was saying. He only vaguely knew that the voice came from a woman, and it was clear and melodious. Even though the voice was as far away as a mountain, it still gave him a soul-stirring feeling. It was like poison, causing him to be unable to sleep at night and toss and turn restlessly in bed. He drew the map. This morning he crawled out of bed at the first glimmer of dawn. When he touched his bedding, he realized that another shell had formed. *CK. If this went on, he would kneel. How did this happen? Qin Guang racked his brains but could not think of a reason. 5 days ago he had only done something he was guilty of. All I did was take a cup that a passenger left on the bus and use it myself. Heavens, do you really have to punish me so viciously? That weirdo got off the bus and left without saying a word. He did not take anything. When I called him, it turned out to be an invalid number. When he turned around, he did not contact me. What's even more ridiculous is that I clearly saw his face, but I can't even remember what he looks like. It's like seeing a ghost. The thing that he left behind was not something valuable. It was just a glass cup with a picture of a beautiful woman in an ancient costume printed on it. At most, if he asks me for it later, I'll just compensate him, right? But isn't this karma a little too violent? Old man is going to become a monk. This poor monk's dharma name is Master Meng Yi. Doctor, save me. I'm sick. I don't want to die. Hence the scene just now happened. His illness was not seen, but he embarrassed himself in front of such a beautiful doctor. He could not live on anymore. His life was about to collapse, but he still had to grit his teeth and continue. There was only 1 month left until the CET-4 exam of his 3rd year. Gokyo University, where Qin Guang studied, had a very ridiculous rule. Anyone who did not pass CET-4 in 4 years would not have a degree certificate. The school claimed that it was in line with international standards. Regarding this, Qin Guang only had one thought: screw me. Since the beginning of his 1st year, Qin Guang had taken the exam every semester, but his scores kept getting lower and lower. Up until now, this was the 6th time he had made a desperate attempt to pass CET-4. His chances were as slim as winning 5 million in the lottery. The more he spoke, the more his face filled with tears. He could not bear to recall the past. Today was the weekend. Qin Guang and his best friend, Wenwen, had agreed to revise together in the library. Although it was to revise together, One could be considered half a top student. It was this overly beautiful school belle's best friend who saw how miserable Chen Guang was and personally supervised him to revise for CET4. One was also a strange person. She was tall and slender and had exquisite facial features. Every movement she made exuded an elegant and moving temperament. These three major factors made her, who did not have a high profile, become one of the school belle of Gokyo University. She could be considered a celebrity in the school. Chen Guang had coincidentally become best friends with her. However, he knew that all of you were wrong. Ridiculously wrong. You were all deceived. This woman, how was she a school belle? Her alluring appearance and temperament were all a lie. This girl was a real tomboy. Once you got familiar with her, you would not treat her as a woman. A man's soul lived in her body. No matter how beautiful her appearance was, it was all a lie. The two of them sat in the corner of Gokyo University's library. Even though they had deliberately kept a low profile, one still could not avoid being the focus of other nearby students' gazes. Whether it was boys or girls, there were always some people who would steal glances at them from time to time. Today she was wearing a white shirt that showed off her figure. Although only her upper body could be seen when she was sitting, her full bosom was still dazzling, causing others to have infinite fantasies about her figure. But the most attractive part was still her face. Her skin was white as snow, and her skin was delicate. She had a pair of charming almond-shaped eyes that carried a heroic spirit, and her cherry-red lips were curved into a mischievous arc. She was beautiful to the point of bubbling bubbles. One had long been accustomed to the strange gazes that harassed her all the time. She was too lazy to care. At this time she just used her hand to support her chin, tilted her head, and squinted at Chen Guang with a playful expression. Right now the expression on Chen Guang's face was very complicated. Surprise, panic, confusion, expectation, and even a little bit of lust. He was shocked by Wenwen's words just now. For a moment he couldn't wrap his head around it. After a long time, he calmed down and fiercely glared at Wenwen. Your joke is a bit too much. My little heart can't take it. Who's joking with you? I'm serious. You're already a third year. Without English classes, you usually have to drive a sports car to earn money. You'll only get worse the more you study. If you don't take advantage of this last breath and pass the 4th level, don't tell me you still want to wait until your 4th year? At that time, there will be more things to do before graduation. Passing the 4th level will be even more impossible. If you can't pass the 4th level, you don't have a degree certificate. One said very seriously. But this is too. Chen Guang still felt that it was too inconceivable. Although he knew that Wenwen's temperament was very manly, very tomboyish, and very tough, he really didn't expect that she could be tough to this extent. Don't be so wishy-washy. I, Wenwen, have always been a woman of my words. There's no doubt about it. Wenwen heavily slammed the table and glared at him with domineering eyes. For an old virgin like you, a beauty like this lady definitely has a fatal attraction. In order to stimulate your greatest potential, in order to let you get rid of the quagmire of not being able to graduate, in order to save a youth who may not be able to graduate and walk on the wrong path, this lady today solemnly promises that as long as you pass the 4th level, I won't be able to kiss you here through your clothes. 5 minutes. Wenwen continued to say, and even used the tip of her finger to point at her 34C erect peaks. Chen Guang's mouth opened so wide that a goose egg could be stuffed in it. Wenwen continued to say, although the two of us aren't in that kind of relationship, it doesn't matter. Anyway, a kiss won't hurt a piece of flesh. As long as we don't say it out loud, the heavens, the earth, you and I will know it doesn't matter. After a pause, Wenwen said again, as a brother, it's not a problem for me to do anything for you. What do you think about this small matter? I really want to help you with all my sincerity. You're lucky. How about it? Do you want it? Is this reward good enough? Is this motivation enough? This lady has sacrificed her body to save your life. That's right, this was the thing that made Chen Guang panic. Just now, his best friend Wenwen, this good brother, who had a beauty that could cause the downfall of a nation, but hid a heart of a tomboy, actually said that as long as he could pass level 4, she would let him kiss her chest through her clothes for a whole 5 minutes. Following the direction of Wenwen's finger, Chen Guang's gaze gradually moved downwards again. When he saw the place where her finger was pointing, his mind went blank. Chest. Not through clothes. Kiss. Apart. Show. You're really not teasing me? Chen Guang was a little uncertain. Wenwen was indeed a goddess. Even if she didn't have any makeup on, she wouldn't lose to those goddesses on TV who were meticulously made up. She belonged to the category of evildoers who, even though they knew she was poison, couldn't help but want to swallow her into their stomach. Unfortunately, she was a tomboy. I'm really not teasing you. This lady is serious. Wenwen nodded her head heavily. Qin Guang felt that his whole body was about to collapse. She was simply tempting him to commit a crime. His gaze drifted downwards and Qin Guang was looking at Wenwen's pair of tall and full breasts. Even with the white coat covering them, he could see that they were quite majestic. At such a close distance, even if Wenwen only moved a little when she breathed, this pair of white rabbits would tremble incessantly. In a daze, there seemed to be a warm fragrance drifting out from there, and his nose felt like it was going to melt. He found that he was really moved, and his mind had already started to imagine that scene. She stood in front of him with her upper body bare and he puckered his lips and slowly moved closer. Tongue, Chow, withdraw. I can't think about it anymore. Qin Guang's whole body trembled. If he continued to think about it, he wouldn't be able to continue reading this book. This is too scary. I'm actually moved by a man's chest. The old man's 1,000 years of cultivation is going to be destroyed in one day. Seeing his infatuated look, Wenwen smiled without saying anything. She only looked at Qin Guang from head to toe for a moment. That gaze seemed to say, "Little guy, do you think I don't understand you? Do you really think that the real stuff that this lady found in your laptop is just for show? Once you raise your little tail, I know what you're thinking in your heart. Fine, in any case, I'll leave my words here. This matter is settled. As long as you can pass the 4th level, I'll keep my word. But if you don't pass, then pretend I never said anything about this matter. Of course, with your current level, I'll give you 2 words, no chance. This matter is just a thought. Young man, look at this set of papers of yours. Out of 10 questions, you didn't even get 1 correct. Didn't I think that you're dead for sure? That's why I dared to make this bet with you? Do you really think that I'm that generous?" After saying that, Wenwen glanced at the simulation paper that Qin Guang had just finished. She really wasn't talking nonsense. It was full of crosses. Actually, the reason why Wenwen dared to place such a heavy bet on Qin Guang was purely because she really didn't think highly of Qin Guang at all. She felt that he was too miserable, so she just gave him a little motivation. Finally, Qin Guang was sure that she really wasn't joking. His expression instantly became serious. After a while, he spat out 3 words, "Good brother. For life." Although the hope was slim, the old man threw caution to the wind and did it. Leaning his head on the table, Qin Guang fiercely threw all his thoughts into the book. He took out 200% of his state and studied to his death. Unfortunately, his heart was higher than the sky, but his life was thinner than paper. After a busy afternoon, looking at the large number of red crosses on the simulation paper, old man Qin Guang covered his face. He felt like dying. After reading in the afternoon, he went out to run for half the night. When he returned to the dormitory, he was once again stuck with the revision materials for the 4th grade. Exhausted, Qin Guang climbed onto the bed, but he couldn't sleep. He was flustered. "Buddha, please protect me and take away the female ghost that howls in my ears every day. The old man now has an important task that cannot be delayed. Otherwise, I'll use a rubber band to tie up my penis to protect it. Save it. If I really do that, I'll cut it off tomorrow." His head tilted to the side. No matter how scared he was, he still had to sleep. Tonight's dream became a little strange. The voice that could not be heard clearly became a little clearer. It was still that woman. She said, "Don't you want to learn that English thing? Give me your blood. As long as I have your blood, I'll let you learn everything you want to learn in a day. Everything. Give me your blood. Your blood. F***CK. Qin Guang slammed his hand on the bed as he finally woke up from his nightmare. What the hell? It's really a ghost. I just want to learn English and you want to suck my blood dry? F***CK off. This business is a huge loss. The person in the cup was already bursting with anger. Can you listen to me finish what I have to say? When did I say I want to suck your blood dry? Are your divergent thoughts going to break through the sky? Don't be afraid. It's fine even if you give me a nosebleed. I can even accept blood from your teeth. Didn't you make a bet with that pretty girl? I'll help you. There are 3,000 worlds in my heavenly holy grail. Each world can be used to cultivate an ultimate skill that you want. Your English is just a child's play. You will win. Damn savior, you're really a pig. You've tricked me to death. Give me blood. Blood. Just a little bit of HP. Chapter 2. The next day, Qin Guang and Wenwen were revising in the library together again. Although he had been woken up by a nightmare last night, Master Guang was still full of fighting spirit and was in top form today. Wenwen turned to size up Qin Guang, a strange look flashing through her eyes, but she quickly hid it. She couldn't help but recall the scene when they first met. University had just started then, and broadband hadn't been installed in the dormitory. One had gone to the internet cafe outside the university to take a look, but who knew that she would be harassed by a few hooligans when she left the cafe. Just as she was about to deal with these people, Qin Guang, who happened to pass by, rushed out and stood up for her. Qin Guang was alone after all, and he had rushed up on impulse. In the end, he was restrained by these hooligans in less than 2 rounds. Frankly speaking, One had felt that Qin Guang was a little silly and adorable. Why did he rush over directly? He was clearly just an ordinary person, and the entrance to the internet cafe was so dark. He couldn't have seen her face clearly, so he couldn't be considered a hero saving a damsel in distress. Your expression is so strange. What are you thinking about? Qin Guang, who was at the side, had finished another set of reading comprehension. He turned his head and saw One in a daze, holding her cheeks as she stared at him blankly. There was a sinister smile on her face that made one's hair stand on end. He couldn't help but ask. One blinked. I'm thinking, why did you dare to rush over at that time? Besides, what's the use of rushing over? Qin Guang's face twitched. Of course he knew what One was talking about. Now that he thought about it, he had indeed been extremely foolish back then. After all, he had just entered university and hadn't gotten used to it yet. When he saw such a thing, he thought that it was still high school, and these hooligans in his hometown's county town would more or less have to give face to his brother Guang. He hadn't thought much about it then and had gone over directly. Unfortunately, this was Wujing City, not his hometown. The hooligan didn't give him any face at all. At that time, Qin Guang thought he might be beaten up badly. What was the result? The little girl who looked delicate just a moment ago had turned into a female Tyrannosaurus in the next second. She suddenly rushed up and beat the hooligans to the ground, causing them to cry and scream. She was so excited that she couldn't stop. Even he, the hero who had saved the beauty, suffered a punch for nothing. He almost vomited all his stomach acid. Qin Guang felt extremely wronged. If you can fight so well, don't pretend to be delicate. Isn't this causing misunderstandings? Didn't I get beaten up for nothing? Later, One felt really embarrassed and brought him to the school's infirmary for a checkup. The results were also shocking. Internal injuries. He almost had internal bleeding. And this was just King accidental punch. After that, the two often ran into each other in school. They occasionally chatted for a while and found that they actually had a lot of common interests, especially the two of them liked to play Dota. They spent more time together and after a while they became the heartless best friends they were now. However, in the past year the time that Qin Guang played games with her had decreased. Something happened to his family and he was now very short of money. He had to borrow an old car from his best friend in his hometown. Every day he had to run at least 4 to 5 hours to call for a car over the internet to earn some money and help share some of the pressure at home. Alright. If I knew that you were so cruel, I wouldn't have come to meddle in other people's business. Don't disturb me from reading with those strange eyes. Qin Guang was afraid that she would bring up the past again, so he quickly turned his head back to the book. It was another day of hard work, but it was to no avail. Ever since he entered university, he hadn't studied English properly. That was why his grades kept getting lower and lower. Now, even if he gave One a huge motivation, his foundation was too poor. It wasn't easy to make up for it in a short period of time. The two of them walked out of the library side by side. Qin Guang hung his head dejectedly and put on a bitter face. His little eyes couldn't help but drift to One's chest from time to time. His heart was bleeding at the thought that this piece of tofu that was so close to his mouth was about to fly away. One, why didn't you tell me that you came to the library to read? I could have arranged a place for you in the meditation hall on the top floor. You're a person of status. Don't mix around with some poor loser of unknown origin. Who knows, some people might have ulterior motives towards you. You have to be careful. Just as the two of them walked out of the library, a handsome and sunny young man with neatly parted hair, wearing a white suit and a checkered tie quickly caught up to One. He walked side by side with One and said to her with a smile. This person was the current president of Gokyo University's student council, One's classmate, Zheng He. Apart from his identity as the president of Gokyo University's student council, he was also the only son of Zheng Yunhao, the chairman of a famous company in Sichuan province, the New Radiance Corporation. He was also a member of the New Radiance Corporation's board of directors. To put it simply, Zheng He could be considered as an authentic celebrity in Gokyo University. He was the perfect embodiment of 3 words: tall, rich, and handsome. One's footsteps came to a halt. She turned her head to look at Zheng He, who was deliberately squeezing in between her and Qin Guang. She glared at him with extreme annoyance. After a long while, she spat out a single word, scram. Her words were concise and to the point. Even the usually steady Zhang He could not help but have his expression change. When this person was trying to get close to her, he actually slandered her best friend, Qin Guang. Wenwen was not going to be polite with him at all. Qin Guang, who was standing at the side, was already used to Wenwen's extremely cold reaction. Over the past 3 years, similar scenes had played out countless times. Zhang He was just one of them. Sigh, it's a sin to be so beautiful. Everyone loved beauty. No matter what, you could not stop others from being mesmerized by you and always wanting to flirt with you. When dealing with these people, one must not be polite. Give them a little sunshine and they will shine the world for you. On the other side, Zhang He was so angry that his adrenaline was pumping. He almost lost his temper. However, when he thought of Wenwen's unfathomable family background, a basin of cold water was poured over his heart. No wonder she was the senior director of New Ray University. Her ability to control her temper was not just for show. He calmed down in an instant and forced a smile from the corner of his mouth. Wenwen, you really know how to joke. I'm not joking with you. I asked you to scram, Wenwen said again. You. Zhang He's expression turned a little ugly. What? Do you still want to flip out? Wenwen's expression was as cold as frost as she looked at Zhang He coldly. Under the pressure of her aura, Zhang He turned his head to the side in embarrassment and did not dare to say anything. Zhang He had been repeatedly humiliated by Wenwen. He knew in his heart that he must not provoke her anymore. If he really pissed her off, it would not end well for him. Moreover, the people nearby had already noticed the commotion. If it continued, he was afraid that the news of him, the president of the student council, being embarrassed in public would spread in the school. Therefore, he hurriedly smiled at Wenwen as if he was trying to please her. Then he turned his target to Qin Guang. Qin Guang, I have more or less heard about what happened in your family. It is important to know one's place. I won't say more than that. You should understand. No matter how close a toad is to a swan when it's young, when everyone is grown up, a toad can only be with another toad, and a swan will only marry a swan. If a toad doesn't go far away, I'm afraid it will be accidentally trampled to death by another courting swan. In front of Qin Guang, Zhang He had the capital to be arrogant. Wenwen, who was at the side, did not say a word. She knew Qin Guang too well. With this guy's personality, Zhang He's level of provocation was purely a waste. Sure enough, Qin Guang heard that and grinned. Young Master Zhang He, do you know what the biggest difference between you and me is? Zhang He saw that Wenwen did not speak and became even more excited. It's just that you are a poor loser. Although I don't want to flaunt my wealth all day long, this kind of thing, anyone with a discerning eye can see, right? What he was thinking was very simple. In terms of family background, appearance and temperament, which one of them is not 8 streets better than you? This is the biggest difference between us. I don't believe that you can say anything else. Qin Guang suddenly put on a straight face and pulled Wenwen's hand to walk away. You won't understand even if I say it. Man, let's go. If people stay with wild animals for a long time, they may get the bird flu. Wenwen couldn't help but laugh. She put her hand on Qin Guang's shoulder and ran away with a laugh. What you said makes sense. What if a wild white swan goes crazy and bites people? Ah, I'm dying of laughter. What an idiotic pretense. Comparing yourself to a beast, you must have a screw loose in your brain. You. Zhang He didn't know how to react for a while, and his face turned ashen. Bastard. He did not expect Qin Guang to laugh at him with his own words. He did not even give him a chance to counterattack and ran away quickly. At this moment, Zhang He felt as if he had been slapped in the face for no reason. When he came back to his senses, the other party had already run a few hundred meters away. There was a nameless anger in his heart, and there was nowhere to vent it. Qin Guang, just you wait. Sooner or later you will suffer. Don't fall into my hands. Chapter 3. Qin Guang and Wenwen did not care whether Zhang He was fuming with anger or if he wanted to jump off a building. After dinner, it was exactly 7 o'clock when Qin Guang was ready to go to his sports car. Watching Qin Guang's car turn the corner, Wenwen sighed softly and turned to walk into the school. She thought to herself, although Qin Guang has always been joking around in front of me for the past year, the changes that happened to him, no matter how hard he tried to hide them, could not be erased. That incident had turned him from a rich second generation who did not have to worry about food and clothing to a sports car owner who had to call for cars on the internet every day to earn money. How could he not be touched at all? After a busy night, he parked his car in the school's parking lot and leaned weakly against the driver's seat. Stretching his body, Qin Guang felt a little tired. Raising his hands slightly, he picked up the cup on the cup holder and took a sip of water. Then he used the dim light in the parking lot to size up the unknown thing. Thinking about the strange things that happened to him these past few days, he could not help but wonder if it had anything to do with this cup. The timing was too much of a coincidence. Under the illumination of the street lamp, the crystal-clear fiberglass cup glowed faintly, and its appearance was still acceptable. However, no matter how beautiful this thing was, it was still just a cup, the kind of thing that could be bought at street stalls at any time. There was a woman in an ancient costume printed on the cup, floating like a fairy. It looked a little like the flying goddess in the Dunhuang murals. He had never taken a closer look at it before, but today he realized that the workmanship was not simple at all. Qin Guang muttered, "This portrait is quite good. It's just a watercolor painting, but it looks too real. It looks like a photo. TSK, look at this little face. It's pink and white with a tinge of red. Amazing, really amazing." As he said that, Qin Guang could not help but stretch out his fingers to touch the face of the flying goddess. When his fingers touched it, he felt the coolness of the fiberglass, which meant that the portrait was embedded in the inner layer of the fiberglass. Forget it, it must be because I've been too tired recently. That's why I've been doing it continuously. It can't have anything to do with this cup. After the founding of the People's Republic, humans were no longer allowed to become spirits. They couldn't possibly have a cup spirit living in this cup. He got out of the car, locked the door and held the cup in his hand. Qin Guang swung the ham in his hand as he walked along the path at the edge of the parking lot. "Hey, hateful brat. Take your finger off my chest." Before he could take 2 steps, an inexplicable voice sounded from the bottom of Qin Guang's heart. It sounded extremely vicious. Qin Guang stopped in his tracks and looked left and right. In the huge parking lot there was no one else but him. The dim yellow street light shone on his body, stretching his shadow on the ground. The night wind blew on the small trees on both sides, and the leaves made rustling sounds. From time to time the sound of insects came from the grass. Everything seemed so lonely. *CK, could it be a ghost? There was absolutely no one else. Something's not right. This tone, does it sound a little familiar? It seems to be the same person that I've been dreaming about every night for the past few days. Thinking of this, Qin Guang felt his hair stand on end. He quickly shook his head. Don't joke around. What era is this? We have to believe in science. There are no demons or ghosts. This is definitely an auditory hallucination. I need to calm the nerves and nourish the brain. Or even 3 bottles of juice will do. I'm really sick. Putting away these unreliable thoughts, Qin Guang held the cup in his arms and walked forward quickly. He didn't hear the strange woman's voice again until he walked out of the parking lot. He looked back several times, but he didn't see anyone following behind him. His heart finally relaxed. He thought to himself, it really was an auditory hallucination. "Sigh, I'm really unfortunate." The woman's voice just now didn't come from outside his ears. It came from the depths of his mind. Hallucination. This is definitely an illusion. I'd better hurry back to my dorm and have a good sleep. Qin Guang, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Later, I really want to know if you can still be as cocky as you were this afternoon. Just as he stepped out of the parking lot, another untimely voice rang out. This time it wasn't the woman, but a tall figure in a white suit blocking his way. Behind this person stood 5 well-built young men. They were obviously the school's sports special admission students. Zhenghe. This guy had suffered a loss in the argument in the afternoon. He actually brought people to block Qin Guang at night. After what happened in the afternoon, Qin Guang knew that Zheng He would definitely be dissatisfied with him. However, he didn't expect his revenge to come so quickly. However, if he was given another chance, Qin Guang would still have the same attitude in the afternoon. Qin Guang wasn't the kind of person who would happily put the right side of his face up for others to slap if they wanted to slap him on the left side of his face. If you don't give me face, of course I won't give you face either. Even if he was blocked here, Qin Guang didn't plan to give in. For people like Zheng He, giving in would only make them worse. Qin Guang stood still, but he secretly put his hand into the inner pocket of his shirt. Driving outside was like walking in the pugilistic world. There was always the possibility of encountering some trouble. Therefore, Qin Guang always had a weapon on him. Of course, the only weapon that was easy to carry and had amazing power was the swing stick. When this thing was put away, it was no longer than the length of a palm. When it was thrown out, it was about a meter long. It had a strong structure. Together with the specially reinforced ball at the top, the force of the blow was amazing. If it hit someone's head, it could kill them. Under normal circumstances, of course, Qin Guang wouldn't easily take out this killer weapon. However, he was blocked by Zheng He and 5 sports students. This place was dark and uninhabited. If something really happened, it was possible for these people to kill him. Therefore, he was afraid that he would have to play rough today. Seeing that Qin Guang seemed to be stunned and stood still, Zheng He felt good. He took a step forward and almost touched Qin Guang's forehead. Zheng He said fiercely, "Weren't you very arrogant before? Didn't you call me a beast? Now let's see how you are going to be arrogant. Kid, do you know how powerful I am? I will say it here today. If you are willing to kneel down and beg for mercy and crawl under my crotch, I can consider letting you stay in the hospital for a month. Otherwise, don't even think about driving in your next life. Just wait to spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair. For me, even if I cripple you, it's nothing more than paying some money. However, your life will be ruined." Zheng He was very proud. What he said was the truth. With his family's financial situation, it was really not a big deal to deal with a poor loser. Even if these people he called accidentally killed the other party, it would only be a little more troublesome. It was still not a big deal. Qin Guang didn't say much. Instead, he took a step back and put some distance between himself and Zheng He. Zheng He thought that he was scared, so he was even more proud and arrogant. In his mind, he was already thinking about how he would press this person to the ground and slap him. He snorted, "Stinky loser should have the awareness of a stinky loser. Is one someone you can get close to? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself?" In the dark, Qin Guang still didn't say a word. He just fiercely took out a baton from his pocket and shook his hand. With a clang, the long baton was held horizontally in his hand. The special weight on the tip looked particularly ferocious under the dim light of the street lamps. He just took a step back just to find the best distance to attack with the baton. "Young Master Zheng, is that a baton in his hand?" A knowledgeable sports student saw something strange and asked in surprise. After all, the baton had a fierce reputation. It looked inconspicuous, but strictly speaking, it was a controlled tool. In the hands of people who risked their lives, it might be more powerful than a machete. Zheng He didn't know the power of this thing. He just stared at Qin Guang and said, "So what if it's a baton? Do you think this kid dares to fight back? Get him. Beat him until he doesn't look human anymore. Beat him into a real beast." With a wave of his hand, Zheng He retreated a little. His body was precious. Since he had 5 hired thugs with money, there was no need for him to personally go into battle. Although the 5 sports students were a little hesitant when they saw the baton, since Zheng He had asked them to attack, they had no choice but to do it. After all, they had the advantage in numbers. Even if the other party had a weapon, it was probably just a bluff. This thing could kill a person if it hit the head. That kid wouldn't really dare to kill them, would he? Does he really think I'm a pushover? Qin Guang saw the other party pouncing forward, and his heart was filled with anger. Whoever dares to come up will have to pay with their lives. Today he was going to let someone bleed. Chapter 4. Qin Guang was also a person who had been born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He had seen a lot of idiots who deceived their parents. He could completely understand the mentality of people like Zheng He. Don't be fooled by him saying that he would teach Qin Guang a lesson. If he really didn't resist, he might really be crippled alive. As the saying goes, those who are arrogant crawl are stupid. Those who are stupid are afraid of those who don't care about their lives. The current Qin Guang had already become a poor loser, just as Zheng He had said. If he didn't show his attitude of not caring about his life, he would suffer a big loss. As soon as he finished speaking, facing the siege of the 5 sports students, not only did Qin Guang not retreat an inch, but he even took a step forward. His eyes flashed with a bloody light, and he even raised the baton in his hand high up, ruthlessly smashing it towards the head of the person in front of him. What the F***ck? This guy is serious. These 5 sports students weren't good people in school. They had done a lot of bullying the week, but they had really never seen someone like Qin Guang who wanted to kill without saying a word. The person who was targeted by Qin Guang suddenly panicked. His reaction was fast enough, and he raised his hand to block his head. Then there was a cracking sound as the baton hit his arm. Unexpectedly, his arm was fractured. The other 4 people were trying to rescue Qin Guang. 3 of them raised their fists towards Qin Guang's body, and the other person turned his head to the side to look for a useful guy on the ground. Qin Guang hadn't fought many times since he was young, but he also knew that in this kind of one versus many situation, there was only one way to suppress the opponent. That was, no matter how others attacked you, you didn't have the mood or ability to dodge the attacks of others. You just had to focus on one person and ruthlessly beat them to death. You had to let them know that even if you were beaten to death here, the person you were targeting would have to die with you. His back and waist were hit 3 times. These sports students' fists were really heavy, and it made Qin Guang feel so uncomfortable that he wanted to vomit blood, but he still chased forward. This time, the baton was aimed at the temple of the person who had just broken his forearm. Someone was going to die. In the nick of time, the person who had turned around to look for the guy on the ground finally appeared in time. His hands were wrapped around a metal trash can by the roadside, blocking the path of the baton. There was another loud bang. The trash can made of thin iron sheets had been completely deformed by Qin Guang's stick. The man's hands were also trembling. The trash can fell to the ground. It was as if it had been hit by a car and there was a huge dent in it. Qin Guang's eyes were bloodshot, like a beast that was about to devour someone. Damn it, didn't you want to deal with me? Come on. Come on, all of them. Whoever was a coward was a grandson. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. A bunch of trash. As he spoke, he felt the sound of something breaking through the air behind his head. He didn't have time to turn around, so he subconsciously raised his left hand that was still holding the glass cup to the side. There was a clang, and he blocked the sneak attack of another sports student with a steel pipe that he had picked up from the ground. It seemed like the other person's steel pipe had slightly scratched his finger. Qin Guang's left hand that was holding the glass felt like it was being torn apart, but at least he didn't get hit in the head. Damn it. You're looking for death. Under the pain, Qin Guang's adrenaline exploded. The last bit of reason in his head disappeared at that moment. He suddenly turned around and swung the baton in his right hand. It hit the shoulder of the person holding the steel pipe. The person groaned in pain, hugged his shoulder and retreated to the side. Damn it. My hand is broken. My hand is broken. At that moment, the first person who was hit by Qin Guang slowly recovered from the pain. He sat on the ground and howled in pain. Damn it, my shoulder hurts. Damn it, it seems like my bone is broken. From the close combat to injuring two people, it took a long time to describe, but in fact only a few seconds had passed. Hearing their companions scream, the three sports students who hadn't been injured felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads, and they all took a step back. Qin Guang's breathing was extremely heavy, with his chest sounding like a bellows. He gave the three sports students a ferocious kick, ignoring the pain coming from his fingers as he took a step forth, frightening the three of them to the point of retreating. It was so much so that Zheng He, who was hiding at the back, was forced to the front. Yes, in terms of strength, any one of the five sports students was much stronger than Qin Guang. But in a fight, when it came to winning or losing, it was all about momentum. Zheng He was dumbfounded. He didn't expect it to turn out like this. He clearly had five sports students who were very good at fighting on his side. How did it turn out like this in the blink of an eye? It didn't make sense. Zheng He, you better think about it. Just like you said, you are rich and I only have one cheap life. It's not a loss for me to drag you to death with me. Even if you let these people beat me to death here today, I can guarantee that I will drag at least 3 people to death with me. And you, Zheng He, must be one of them. Come. Let's fight to the death. As Qin Guang spoke, he pointed the stick straight at Zheng He's nose and said coldly. There was a murderous aura in his words. He wasn't joking, but he really intended to do it. Zheng He subconsciously took 2 steps back. He was afraid. He was a person of status and wealth. It was not worthwhile for him to play a game of mutual destruction with a small fry like Qin Guang. As the saying went, the barefooted were not afraid of those who wore shoes. As the son of the chairman of the New Radiance Group and the heir to a large asset, Zheng He wore extraordinary shoes. Others might not be respectful to him normally, but they would never dare to threaten his life so blatantly. Qin Guang's naked threat really caught him off guard. Don't think that I can't do anything to you if you play with your life. I can use money to smash you to death too. Zheng He said fiercely, but he was still retreating as he spoke. He was planning to run away. Qin Guang was expressionless. If you say another word of nonsense, I will kill you right now. Let's go. Zheng He wasn't stupid. He knew that the people on his side had already lost their minds. He didn't want to suffer in silence. He felt that it was not worthwhile to make things difficult for a lunatic, so he turned around and left. The 3 sports students who hadn't been injured hurriedly supported their 2 injured companions and followed behind Zheng He. They came in a threatening manner, but left in such a dejected manner. It was really embarrassing. When Zheng He and his group were far away, Qin Guang's tense nerves suddenly relaxed. Qin Guang didn't have the time to think about how Zheng He would take revenge on him later, nor did he have the ability to care. Since he had already formed a grudge with this person, he could only deal with it when it came. Did a peasant deserve to be trampled on by rich people? Was this a joke? If you piss me off, even if I have to give up my body, I will drag you down from your horse. Qin Guang thought fiercely. Ever since that incident at home, although he was usually cheerful, he had always been hiding a vicious aura in his heart. It was Zheng He's bad luck. He brought people to block the road and provoked the vicious aura in his heart. When this person's temper flared up, how could he care so much about reason? How could he have any scruples? When his mood calmed down, Qin Guang slowly put away the baton. Only then did he remember that his left hand had been severely scratched by the steel pipe. When he put away the baton, he used a little bit of force and grimaced in pain. He stood under the streetlight and carefully looked for a long time. After confirming that his finger was only scratched and not hurt to the bone, he felt a little relieved. It was just a little strange. At that time, the steel pipe must have hit the fiberglass cup. Not only did the cup not break, but there wasn't even a little bit of damage. Forget it. Since this cup was a high-end product, it was normal to be more solid. After calming his mood, Qin Guang put the baton and the cup into his pocket. He rubbed his fingers and walked in the direction of the dormitory. The wound on his finger wasn't deep. There was only a little blood, so he didn't have to worry about tetanus. However, Qin Guang also neglected one thing. At that time, his hand was hit while holding the cup and his finger was bleeding. But now there was no blood on the cup at all. After the trace of blood touched the surface of the cup, it disappeared without a trace. Qin Guang didn't know that at this time the woman in the cup, oh no, the goddess empress, had completely fallen into a state of ecstasy. Wow! Little guy, I've waited for a long time for this day. You finally dripped blood to recognize the owner. Just you wait, just you wait. When he returned to the dormitory, he could hear his 3 roommates from afar. It was very lively. It was also at this moment that Qin Guang, who was tired all night, was able to clearly realize that he was still a university student. Chapter 5. It's fogging. It's fogging. Who's pulling? Say something. This shrill shout came from Bai Fan. Due to Bai Fan's small stature, his voice was sharp and ear-piercing, and his occasional effeminate aura, he was given a nickname by everyone when he entered the school. People in Jianghu called him the White Lady. Of course, Bai Fan's voice was a little feminine, and his actions were a little feminine, but overall he was quite loyal. Wait, I'm still rushing. My blink dagger is still on cooldown. Immediately, wait for the old man's people to jump in. The other rough and loud voice belonged to Xiong Jinka, who was known as Xiong Air in the dormitory. He was a standard burly man from the northeast. He spoke carelessly and looked very rough. According to him, when he was young, he was known as the Tiger of Northeast Muden River. That was indeed the case. Whenever something happened, regardless of whether he understood the situation or not, he would rush forward and start making a move. His principle in everything he did was to reason things out. However, he had to make a move first before reasoning things out. Due to this guy's bad temper, he often made a fool of himself because he did not understand the situation. As for Lin Jingwei, who was nicknamed Lil Lin, he was lying on the computer silently, his mouse moving non-stop. This guy had a calm personality and played as a carry in the game. At this time he was focused on controlling anti-mage to farm money. This kind of mid-game fighting was better left to Bai Fan, who played as Bat Rider, and Xiong Jinka, who played as Centaur Chieftain. As for Qin Guang, he was not given a nickname. The other 3 usually called him Brother Guang. Among the 4 people in the dorm, Qin Guang seemed to have the best family background. However, Qin Guang always felt that even though Lin Jingwei looked like a loser, he would occasionally show some unusual side, which made people suspicious of his background. However, Qin Guang didn't really care about this kind of thing. Who didn't have their own little secrets? Pushing the door open, the 3 of them were staring intently at the screen in front of them. This was how it was to play Dota 2. A slight distraction would result in losing the game. After driving for most of the night, Qin Guang was also very tired at this time, but he still couldn't sleep now. Since Wenwen had given him that kind of reward, even if the CET4 was getting harder and harder every year, he still had to give it a try this year. For the sake of Wenwen's, for the sake of her diploma, no matter how hard and tiring it was, even if she couldn't even lift her eyelids, she had to fight for it with all her might. I am a young man with a dream. Without greeting the 3 teenagers who were deeply immersed in the game, Qin Guang sat on his chair and took out the CET4 revision materials to read. In order to avoid being disturbed by the sound of the other 3 playing the game, he even put on his headphones. He didn't pay attention to the outside world and only focused on reading the book. Usually, Qin Guang wasn't that serious when reading. From time to time, his mind would wander. After the group of people finished the game, they would drag Qin Guang to discuss the gains and losses of the game, shifting the blame to each other. Qin Guang would also laugh and joke with these people for a while. However, the current Qin Guang was different. He was a person with great ambition and great perseverance. Wenwen's promise really made Qin Guang easily perform 200% of his state. Until the lights went out at 12 o'clock, the other 3 animals in the dormitory were ready to go to bed. Qin Guang only stretched out his hand to turn on the charging light in front of him. He didn't even lift his head. I say, is Brother Guang sick? I felt that something was wrong with him since yesterday. It's been 3 years and I've never seen him in this state. I couldn't even do this before the college entrance examination. Tiske, he's really amazing. Bai Nyangzi and Bai Fan blinked at the other 2 as they washed their feet. Lin Jingwei quietly walked to Qin Guang's side. He picked up the cup that Qin Guang had placed on the table and poured a cup of water from the water dispenser in the living room. He gently placed the cup on Qin Guang's left side where it wouldn't be easily knocked over. He stood up and said to the others, he's already in his 3rd year. If Brother Guang still doesn't pass CET4, it'll really affect his graduation. Let's not have the bedside chat and let him study properly. Xiong'er, you should also speak softly. Oh, Gulyalu, F*ck, he's already asleep? He's so carefree. He's sleeping well. Bai Fan and Lin Jingwei rolled their eyes at the same time and didn't say anything else. They went straight to bed. Those who wanted to play with their phones did so, and those who wanted to sleep went to sleep. Qin Guang had his headphones on, so he didn't know that the 3 of them were talking about him. It wasn't until he felt a little thirsty that he casually reached to the side and pinched a warm cup. He turned his head and found that there was already a cup of water in it. He didn't need to think to know that it was Lin Jingwei who poured it for him. Qin Guang grinned and felt warm in his heart. Among the 3 people in the dormitory, Bai Nyangzi had the most ideas. He could also be called a neurotic with a wide range of ideas. Although Xiong'er was a little chinibyu, he was very upright and would always be the first to rush to the front. Lin Jingwei came from an extraordinary family. He was steady and meticulous. It was a great blessing to be able to spend 4 years with these people in this life. Picking up the cup and taking a sip of water, Qin Guang once again put his mind back on the revision materials. Before he knew it, it was already 2 o'clock in the morning. After spending the entire day in the library and driving the entire night before returning to the dormitory, he had a fight with Zheng He and the others. To be able to focus on reading books for more than 2 hours was already a feat that he had done well. However, a person's energy was limited. After persevering for a long time, Qin Guang was still a little drowsy. However, he felt that he was in a good state. Since he didn't have any classes tomorrow morning, he decided to escape first. He lay on the table and refused to get up. He clenched his teeth and read. Finally, the drowsiness in his heart grew fiercer and fiercer. It fiercely rushed out and completely swallowed the bit of willpower in his heart. Forget it, I'll just lie on the table and doze a little. I'll sleep for half an hour before getting up. Qin Guang took another sip of water, turned off the table lamp and comfortably lay down. He didn't realize that as he lay down, the fiberglass cup that his right hand touched began to emit a faint glimmer. The source of this glimmer was the portrait of the beautiful woman in the ancient costume on the wall of the cup. This decorative painting with red lips and white teeth slightly moved. Little brat. Little brat, wake up, wake up. In a daze, he seemed to hear someone talking to him again. He moved his body and curled his lips impatiently. Go away, don't bother me. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt a tearing pain from his ear, as if someone was desperately pulling his ear. Qin Guang felt the pain and suddenly opened his eyes. He used his hands to push himself up and immediately stood up straight. He angrily looked around. Who's so wicked? Can't you let me sleep properly? He couldn't help but be angry. Anyone who was sleepy to the point of wanting to die and wanted to sleep but was teased like this would definitely feel like beating someone up. Oh, what kind of situation is this? The next moment, the angry Qin Guang quivered all over. The little bit of anger in his heart instantly disappeared, and he was completely dumbfounded. F*ck, I was clearly sleeping in the dormitory, but where the F*ck is this? What the hell? Qin Guang looked around and all he saw was a vast expanse of whiteness. It was like a void, very much like the sea of clouds on Mount Amei on TV. But when he fiercely stomped his feet, it was solid ground. He bent down to touch it and it was the cold touch of marble. Could it be that I'm dreaming? Qin Guang mumbled to himself and pinched his cheek fiercely. The pain was very obvious. He shook his head again. No, it's not a dream, but it hurts. But what the F*ck is going on? I don't understand. Little brat. What are you doing? Why are you looking around? Oh no, I'm here. At this moment, a slightly familiar but even more strange female voice sounded behind Qin Guang. Qin Guang was stunned at first and his whole body stiffened. Then he finally reacted. Isn't this the female ghost's voice that made the old man draw the map for a few days? Isn't this the female voice that I heard before I met Zheng He, which I suspected to be hallucinating? *CK me. Vahai save me. Buddha save me. Help me. This place is definitely haunted. This is not scientific. He really couldn't help but panic. As a good young man of the new era who had been under the influence of modern scientific education for a whole 15 years, he actually encountered this kind of supernatural event that could be said to be haunted. He just lay down in the dormitory for a while, and when he woke up he was in this inexplicable ghost place. This was not reasonable at all. The voice came from behind him. Even though Qin Guang had always been bold, he actually felt a little afraid to turn his head at this moment. What's going on? Dilly-dallying? Is this the savior chosen by the heavenly Holy Grail? That's too bad. The woman behind him was obviously impatient. Since Qin Guang was reluctant to turn around, she ran in front of Qin Guang on her own. Qin Guang raised his eyes slightly, and the panic in his mind disappeared in an instant. He stared blankly at the woman in the ancient costume in front of him, and his whole mind actually stopped in that instant. How could it be? How could there be such a woman? He had never thought that there would be a woman in the world who could be so beautiful. With just a glance, he who had been tested by beauties like Wunwun without any makeup, was completely lost in his thoughts. Chapter 6. The woman was wearing an antique ancient dress, standing in front of Qin Guang. Her red lips and white teeth had a faint smile on her face, and her eyes were as bright as the morning stars, shining with a charming light. Her long dress fluttered in the wind, and her graceful figure made her look like a fairy. Her face looked very similar to the woman in the ancient costume printed on the wall of the cup, but the real person was thousands of times more beautiful than the portrait. White teeth and red lips, as beautiful as the moon, as smooth as ice, as beautiful as the heavens, and as beautiful as the heavens. Any idiom that Qin Guang could think of to describe a woman's beauty would be overshadowed when used on the woman in front of him. Living in a modern society where information was extremely advanced, there were many so-called beauties that one could see on television and the internet. Moreover, there was Wunwun's best friend hanging around him all day long, so Qin Guang should not have lost his composure like this. But the person standing in front of him at this time, not only had an impeccable beauty, but she also exuded an immortal aura that made people feel ashamed of their inferiority. Just one look at her seemed to be able to cleanse one's soul, making one feel otherworldly from the bottom of one's heart. The immortal aura that surged out from this woman seemed to want Qin Guang to become a god and ascend. For her, let alone drawing a map for a few days, even if I had to draw a galaxy, my life would be worth it. What are you doing, little brat? I'm talking to you. Look again? I'll dig your eyes out if you keep looking. In the end, the moment this woman opened her mouth, her ethereal temperament was completely destroyed. This woman was not a fairy, definitely not a fairy, she was a female hooligan. What the **CK is going on here? I was reading and revising in the dormitory. Didn't I just take a short nap? Why did you come here? Where is this place? Who are you? What do you want? Deity? Monster? Female hooligan? Liar? That's right, you must be a liar. I'm penniless now, there's no use even if you lie to me. I don't have any mail to pick up from the post office. I don't have a landline at home. I don't have any credit points that I need to cash in at any of the major banks. I haven't had any lucky draws recently. After Qin Guang came back to his senses, his reaction was also very fast. He roared like a machine gun. He was indeed a good youth who had been influenced by all kinds of strange modern swindling methods. Just as Qin Guang was madly roaring, the woman's body changed again. Her white ancient dress suddenly seemed to be soaked in water. Right before Qin Guang's eyes, it became translucent. This time, Qin Guang's eyes widened to the size of a cow's eyes as he stared fixedly at the other party. The perfect shape of her breasts could barely withstand a person's grip with one hand, the two faintly discernible bright red spots at the top, the slender waist without a trace of fat, the slightly dark and sparse underbrush in the quiet and secluded valley below, all of this was devouring Qin Guang's mind. This woman, she's poisonous. He had no idea what this woman was saying at this time. He only thought, this swindler is putting in too much effort. If she really wants to borrow 1,000 from me, I'll just borrow it. Damn it. I've used up too much divine power, I can't even maintain the lustrous feather robe. I actually let a little brat like you take advantage of me. You're looking for a beating? This nagging woman was clearly not someone with a good temper. Seeing that he was exposed, she waved her fist and walked forward. In a moment of carelessness, Qin Guang was punched in the face by this woman. The pain was extremely real, and it even made him deny the possibility that he was dreaming. He knew that he must have been involved in something terrible. Wait a moment, I have something to say. Qin Guang tried to calm her down, but before he could finish, he was punched in the face again. He was angry. Even if you're a woman, don't go too far. If you do this again, I'll fight back. What answered him was another punch. Although this woman was exposed quite a bit because of her punching, Qin Guang was not in the mood to look at it. Being punched and kicked was really painful. Qin Guang tried to resist and fight back. You still dare to fight back? Facing the Emperor of the Azure, you're the first person in 10 billion years to dare to resist, little brat. This is what's interesting. I've been locked up for so many years and I can finally come out to get some fresh air. If you don't make any movements, how boring would that be? Awesome. Really awesome. What welcomed Qin Guang was still the woman's punches again and again. Damn, the old man was actually not a match for her. Qin Guang was really angry. This woman looked weak and slender, but her hands and feet were ridiculously nimble. Her strength was not light either. Left hook, right hook, every punch landed on the flesh. There was no way to defend, no way to dodge. As the woman moved her hands and feet, she kept saying something. Under the fist, people had no choice but to lower their heads. Qin Guang was not a masochist. He really wanted to resist, but the enemy was too strong. He was really wronged. He didn't understand the situation at all and came to this place. He met a strong woman, who looked like an immortal but was actually a lunatic. He didn't say anything and ended up getting beaten up. He didn't know who he had offended. After being beaten for an unknown period of time, the nagging woman screamed, "Ah! Why have you been beaten up for so long? Forget it, anyway, I've said most of what I needed to say." The first world in the cup of the Holy Grail is about to open. There's no time to explain. Let's go. Immediately, the woman reached out and grabbed Qin Guang's collar, throwing him into the sky. Qin Guang cursed, "You're crazy. I'll sue you until you go bankrupt, you violent maniac." Before he finished his words, Qin Guang, who was floating in the air, suddenly felt a dazzling radiance around him. For a brief moment he couldn't see anything. Shortly after, a terrifying suction force came from his back, as if there were 7 or 8 robust men pulling him. He couldn't resist at all and was dragged into a passage that was even stranger than this place. What is this? A time tunnel? Doraemon? The place he was in made Qin Guang unconsciously think of the cartoons he watched when he was young. These special effects were really expensive. Fortunately, he was freed from the crazy woman's fists. Qin Guang didn't have the mood to care so much anymore. Instead, he was desperately trying to figure out what the woman was talking about when he was being beaten up. Although it sounded a little weird and incoherent, Qin Guang still managed to sort out a rough idea of what Su Tao was talking about. His current position was inside the cup that he had picked up. The name of this cup was called the Heavenly Holy Grail. She said that her name was Emperor of the Azure, and that she was the daughter of the strongest master god in the endless realm of the gods, the master god of chaos. She was trapped in this heavenly holy grail because she fell for a villain's plot. She needed to find a savior to help her complete the test of the trichiliocosm in this heavenly holy grail. Only then could she regain her freedom and return to her original body. You didn't even give me any room for negotiation. Who knows what kind of unorthodox method this trichiliocosm test is? What if the difficulty level is as high as 9? 0? What if my life is in danger? Such an important decision, you should at least tell me in advance so that I can judge the situation myself and decide whether to accept it or not. The good person who sealed her didn't do it thoroughly enough. How is it enough to just trap this kind of female hooligan in a cup? She should be completely smashed into ashes, never to be reincarnated. Something was not right. It seemed like she had said a lot, but she had missed out on something important. Seeing that he was about to reach the end of this so-called time tunnel, and that there was another layer of light in front of him, Qin Guang suddenly reacted. This woman had only said something about the trichiliocosm test, but she did not even tell him what the trichiliocosm was, or what the test was about. She did not even let him know in advance what he had to do to pass the so-called test. To put it simply, Qin Guang was completely in the dark about what he was going to face next. What a scam. He did not doubt the authenticity of this matter at all. No matter how ridiculous all of this seemed, under the profound preschool influence of Emperor of the Azure's punches, Qin Guang already had an extremely deep understanding of this strange woman who lived in a cup. He could also be sure that he was really not dreaming. Because regardless of whether what this woman said was true or not, the feeling of being beaten up to the point of bruising could not be faked at all. From being swept into the cup to being beaten up and then being thrown into the time tunnel, all of this happened too quickly, catching him off guard. Qin Guang did not have the time to reflect on life, to experience and doubt this overly abrupt life change. If he was given a little more time, he would definitely deeply criticize the woman's intermittent talk about the endless divine realm, the master god of chaos, the emperor of the azure, the heavenly holy grail, the redeemer, the trichiliocosm, and all these unscientific, unreasonable, and unreliable things, and fiercely question the rationality and authenticity of their existence. After that, he would have to think about the big philosophy of who he was, where he came from, where he was going, and how such a heavy responsibility fell on him. Then he would at least use 7 to 8 days or a few months to slowly accept this completely contrary to modern science and completely unreliable supernatural event. Unfortunately, there was no time now. He had to believe it even if he did not want to. As he crashed into the light curtain at the end of the time tunnel, Qin Guang appeared in a completely unfamiliar place in a manner that he could not understand and accept at all. Chapter 7. Fortunately, the moment he broke through the light barrier, a notification automatically appeared in his mind. It was still the voice of the unreasonable female hooligan. She spoke very quickly, very urgently, and very crucial. "Little brat, your first mission is to survive in this sea of urgency for half a year. Remember, you have a total of 100 chances to die. After every death, you will return to the state you were in when you first entered the sea of urgency. If you can survive for half a year, then you will have completed the mission. But if you can't do it and die 100 times, the heavenly holy grail will consider you to have failed the mission. Then your body and soul will really be destroyed and you will never be able to reincarnate." Obviously, the female hooligan also knew that she had forgotten to mention the crucial point, and hurriedly came up with a remedy. This woman's words reminded Qin Guang of a movie he had watched before. It was the movie Tom Cruise starred in, Tomorrow's Edge. In Tomorrow's Edge, Tom Cruise had the ability to return to yesterday after every death. Furthermore, every time he resurrected, he would still retain his memories. In the end, Tom Cruise relied on this seemingly immortal body and the ability to predict the future to overcome all difficulties in the battlefield of the future world. He predicted the enemy's moves and successfully defeated the invincible aliens, saving all of humanity. After all, every time he died, he would remember a dangerous point. When faced with danger the second time, he would always be able to make the correct choice. Qin Guang chuckled. "That's more like it. Although I'm lacking in talent, the conditions are still generous. Even if my abilities can't compare to Tom Cruise's, my conditions are better. A total of 100 chances. Who doesn't know how to eat and wait for half a year?" Ah, that's right, she still hasn't mentioned the benefits of completing the mission. Forget it, since it's called the Heavenly Holy Grail, and the old man is the chosen savior, she definitely won't treat me unfairly. This kind of trivial matter, let's not talk about it. Let's talk about it after I survive this half a year. Tom Cruise's original mission was to save all of humanity, but Qin Guang only needed to muddle through for half a year. He felt that it was too easy and pleasant. Seeing that he was about to completely reveal himself in this so-called sea of moments, he began to feel proud and expectant again. Thinking about it carefully, the title of savior was quite resounding. Wait a minute. What is this? What a big knife. It's really sharp. This workmanship, TSK, even pockmarked Wang can't compare. Wait a minute, the situation doesn't seem right. This knife seems to be aimed at my neck. *CK, what the hell is going on? I've just opened my eyes and I'm about to be stabbed. You should at least let me see the situation clearly. According to some unscientific story settings as the main character, my life should be very, very tough. Kacha. He flew away. Just a moment ago, he felt that this matter was easy and pleasant. The next second, he immediately felt the deep malice from the heavenly holy grail and the female rogue. The inexplicable heavenly holy grail, the inexplicable sea of moments, the inexplicable sudden death, all of this made Qin Guang instantly understand that this test of the 3,000 worlds was definitely not a joke. The first step he took in the sea of moments was actually a captive who was about to be beheaded. The term "about to be beheaded" here was not referring to lining up at the side, waiting to be beheaded one by one. Rather, the knife was swaying on his neck, about to be beheaded in the next second. After wasting about 10 chances of reviving, Qin Guang finally managed to escape from the pirate ship named Black Wind. he plunged into the sea and was rescued by another pirate ship named En Royal. The feeling of being slashed by a knife 9 times was really not a joke. The soul-tearing pain again and again tormented him until he hovered between life and death. Well, he was originally really dead, but he came back to life again. If it wasn't for the fact that he knew that he could still revive, Qin Guang felt that he definitely wouldn't have been able to hold on. The heavens took pity on him. He was originally a lad who didn't know how to swim. In order to survive, in order to not return to the Black Wind pirate ship and be beheaded, he stubbornly relied on dog paddling to stay in the water for a long time, until the En Royal appeared. Fortunately, the En Royal was the enemy of the Black Wind pirate ship. They chased him here to annihilate the Black Wind pirate crew, so Qin Guang decisively turned into a guide. After that, Qin Guang temporarily stayed on the En Royal. Although he was just an inconspicuous worker on the ship, at least he managed to find a foothold. After that, Qin Guang gradually found out the true face of the Sea of Moments. In the entire Sea of Moments there was no land at all. In the hearts of the people of the Sea of Moments, there was no concept of land at all. It was as if from the beginning of the world, this was an endless sea. Of course, there were many islands in the sea, but even if all of the islands were added together, it wouldn't even make up 1/10,000th of the sea. As for how long the Sea of Moments had existed, no one knew. In Qin Guang's mind, there was a faint feeling that this so-called Sea of Moments was simply the water in his cup. Because in the legends, the momentary sea had an end and a border. It was just that the border was blocked by an invisible wall that could not be broken. Outside that invisible wall, it was said that there was an enormous and boundless hand that seemed to have slumbered for millions of years. From the day the momentary sea was born, it had existed for eternity. The person who drew this hand was said to be the strongest person in the history of the Sea of Moments. After he found out the terrifying truth, he vomited blood and died in less than 2 days. Before he died, this person said that the endless hand was probably even bigger than the entire Sea of Moments. Of course, no matter how mysterious the legends were, Qin Guang knew that the invisible wall was simply the glass wall of the cup. What eternal hand? It was just his right hand that was placed beside the cup when he slept. Since then, Qin Guang roughly understood the method the Tong Tian Holy Grail used to create the 3,000 worlds. That was to combine his consciousness with the reality inside the cup. Coincidentally, he went to watch Pirates of the Caribbean 7 with Wen not long ago. These 2 days he had been desperately learning English. Thus, the world in the cup created this ocean world that was 80% to 90% similar to the world in Pirates of the Caribbean. Unfortunately, no matter how powerful he was outside, no matter how amazing he was, Qin Guang himself was just a small character in the Sea of Moments. After settling down on the En Royal, Qin Guang was very careful with every step he took, afraid that he would make a mistake. As the days passed, as a modern person he was more knowledgeable than the natives of the Sea of Moments. Gold will eventually shine, his position on the En Royal rose day by day. His half-baked English improved very quickly in this environment. Other than that, being on a pirate ship, it was unavoidable to fight with others. Although Qin Guang was not considered a martial arts genius, but since he was forced to this point, he had no choice but to fight with his life on the line. Compared to the natives of the Sea of Moments, he had a huge advantage. After all, he had so many chances to revive. If he was not careful, he could just start all over again. Of course, in the vast Sea of Moments, there were countless coincidental factors. Even a strong pirate group like the En Royal could meet enemies that they could not fight against, or even be completely annihilated. Following that, Qin Guang died many times, but he was a person who could revive with full health. Moreover, every time he revived, he discovered that the abilities that he had previously trained were still present in his body. The strong body and killing techniques that he had trained on the En Royal made it easier for him to escape from the hands of the Black Wind pirates. After dying time and time again, it made it easier for him to enter a fearless and absolutely calm state when he was in a life-and-death situation. At least in a situation where his strength was the same, Qin Guang would not lose to anyone in a one-on-one fight. Even he did not want to admit it. Brother, you have become so strong and brave. Moreover, relying on his understanding of the people on the En Royal, Qin Guang was able to smoothly return to the ship every time and obtain the trust of the people, allowing him to continue staying on the ship. After starting from the beginning dozens of times, every time Qin Guang revived he would be stronger than before. Until the last time he was able to contend with the Black Wind pirates until the En Royal approached. Qin Guang's fierceness caused his position on the En Royal to rise day by day. After working himself to death for almost half a year, he actually became an important figure on the pirate ship, the dignified second officer of the En Royal. In the vast sea of time, there were tens of millions of pirate crews, and the Anne Royal was at least one of the top 10,000 strong pirate crews. For Qin Guang to be able to become the second officer of this ship, even when looking at the billions of people in the Sea of Time, his personal strength and position was already ahead of 99% of the people. Moreover, from the time he appeared on the Anne Royal to the time he became the second officer, on the surface, it did not even seem like half a year had passed. This could practically be considered a legend in the pirate world. This matter sounded easy, but it was actually not easy. Qin Guang was originally not a talented person, but every time he revived he had to start from the beginning. Although it seemed like he had only stayed in the Sea of Time for half a year, but adding up the time between each revival and death, it was really not a short time. For example, the first few times he revived, from the time he appeared in the Sea of Time until his death, it did not exceed an hour. But later on, sometimes he persevered for a month before dying, sometimes he persevered for 3 months before dying, and the worst time was when he was just a day away from half a year, but in the end he died in the huge whirlpool formed by the death storm. When he finally completed his mission, he only had 5 chances to revive. A total of 95 times he revived with full health, each time he lived longer than the last, from a few seconds to close to half a year. Adding all these times together, it was equivalent to him spending close to 20 years in the Sea of Time. A full 20 years, even the most stupid person could train to become a strong person. Moreover, his body's age had always been maintained at the peak of 20 years old. For Qin Guang to finally settle his achievements as the second officer, it could already be said that he was very stupid. Of course, he would never admit this point. Finally, he commanded the pirate ship to make a huge turn, bringing the entire ship out of the death whirlpool. Qin Guang silently counted the time in his heart. Half a year, it was finally up. I can finally go back. Qin Guang almost wanted to look up to the sky and roar. In these 20 years he had indeed experienced too much. If it wasn't for the fact that his heart had always been clear that this was only the first of the 3,000 worlds trials created by that unlucky cup, and that he would occasionally revive with full health on the spot, he would have almost forgotten his identity as a modern person. But now he could finally go back. Damned Holy Grail. Damned Emperor of the Azure, just you wait. Chapter 8. A light flashed and Qin Guang, who was standing at the bow of the ship, suddenly felt his body become as light as a swallow as his body slowly floated into the sky. Suddenly turning his head, he saw that everyone on the Anne Royal was looking at him with extremely confused eyes. He didn't have time to explain too much to them, he just waved his hand and said, "Everyone, I'm leaving. I don't know if I'll have the chance to see you again. In short, I hope that day will come." After staying on this ship for too long, Qin Guang had developed extremely deep feelings for his companions on the ship. If it wasn't for his extremely special situation and the fact that he had family and friends outside to worry about, Qin Guang really wouldn't be able to leave them. However, no matter how real the people and things in the Sea of Time seemed, the resurrection after death reminded him that he was still a passerby here and would have to leave sooner or later. When the light dissipated, Qin Guang once again returned to the time tunnel. As he traveled through the tunnel, his hatred towards the Emperor of the Azure who had dug such a deep hole for him gradually surfaced in his heart. He secretly gritted his teeth. When he returned and saw that woman, he would definitely skin her alive and tear apart her bones, hang her up and give her a good beating. His entire body trembled. Qin Guang finally passed through the time tunnel. He originally thought that he would see that woman again and suddenly exerted strength, intending to jump up and capture that woman. However, with a dong sound, the back of his head seemed to have hit something. Ouch, 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 my chin. It hurts. Qin Guang's expression froze. This sharp voice, who else could it be other than that fellow Bai Nyangzi? When he suddenly got up, he just happened to hit Bai Nyangzi, who had his chin on the back of his head for some reason. It was a little strange. Logically speaking, he should be in a lot of pain, but at this moment he didn't feel anything. He tried to clench his fist and felt the strength in his body. Qin Guang also discovered that the strong body that he had trained in the Sea of Time was actually completely preserved. Strange, according to the legends of the transient ocean, the so-called eternal hand was his right hand. In that case, when he was roaming in the Sea of Transient, he should be in existence similar to a spirit body. But now that he had come out, why was his real body in the state after experiencing the training in the Sea of Transient? This puzzled him no matter how hard he thought about it. Ignoring Bai Fan who was making a fuss behind him, Qin Guang turned his head slightly and saw the Holy Grail, which looked like a random teacup that could be bought from a roadside stall, quietly placed beside the desk. He stretched out his hand in bewilderment, wanting to take a look at the cup, but before he could get close, he withdrew his hand. Thinking of the instantaneous sea, he didn't dare to touch the cup again. The moment I casually picked it up, the water inside started to sway. The instantaneous sea would probably be filled with raging waves. I say, Brother Guang, you slept on the table for such a night, don't you feel sore all over? I've already woken up and you're still lying on the table. I'm worried that something happened to you. You almost knocked my chin off. Bai Fan shouted from behind, finally able to speak. Qin Guang turned his head and looked at Bai Fan with a slightly puzzled expression. Only one night passed? As Qin Guang turned his head, Bai Fan inadvertently met his eyes. For some reason, when Qin Guang casually looked at Bai Fan, his heart felt a little creeped out, as if he was being stared at by a wild beast. The current Qin Guang gave off an extremely fierce, valiant and cold-blooded feeling. Bai Fan subconsciously took 2 steps back and shouted with a sharp voice, "Oh fuck, Brother Guang, what are you doing? Are you trying to eat me?" Qin Guang was stunned. Only then did he realize that he had just come out of the instantaneous sea. He couldn't help but carry the aura of the second officer of the An Royal. After fighting so many times, that thick murderous aura still hadn't dissipated and it scared people. He fiercely shouted in his heart, "Collect. Collect from me." Shortly after, he squeezed out an awkward smile with great difficulty. "I've been lying on the table for too long, my whole body is very stiff. Don't panic, I'm not gay." Only then did Bai Fan's heart slightly relax. Although he was a little suspicious of Qin Guang's words, after all they had been brothers for 3 years, he also felt that there was no need to be overly suspicious. Instead, he comforted Qin Guang, "Brother Guang, even if you're going to take the level 4 exam, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Look at you, you're almost going crazy. And it's fine, don't think too much. Alright, did I really only sleep for a day?" After being comforted by Bai Fan, Qin Guang gradually pulled himself out of his identity as the second officer and continued to ask, "What else? How much longer do you want to lie on the table? Alright, I want to go to the canteen for breakfast. Do you want me to bring you some food? Why don't you come downstairs with me? You've been cooped up for the whole night, it's best to get some exercise." Bai Fan rolled his eyes and suggested. He inadvertently pinched his thumb and middle finger and tapped on Qin Guang's forehead. *CK. Damn sissy, get up, get up. Bai Fan's thumb and middle finger was even more powerful than the swords and knives on the pirate ship, immediately giving Qin Guang goosebumps. He laughed and slapped his hand away. Shortly after, Qin Guang stood up and moved his body slightly. Not only did he not feel any stagnant soreness, but he felt as light as a swallow. Without understanding the situation of the heavenly Holy Grail, he did not dare to leave rashly. He was still worried about his fellow pirates on the An Royal in the Sea of Moments. No matter what, he had to think of a way to get that unreliable Emperor of the Azure out. At the very least, he had to find out what was going on first. "Bai Nyangzi, help me buy breakfast. I want 3 steamed buns and a bowl of porridge, thanks. I want to read for a while more, I can't go down anymore." Qin Guang found a random excuse and did not intend to go downstairs. Bai Fan rolled his eyes. "I give it to you. You've suddenly become a bookworm. What kind of bewitching potion is it that makes you unable to stop reading?" Bai Fan's words made Qin Guang's mind suddenly recall Wenwen's promise. His expression changed slightly. It had already been 20 years, and when Bai Nyangzi mentioned it slightly, he remembered it. What a terrifying remnant. Wenwen. Honestly speaking, Qin Guang really missed her in his heart. Having lived for almost 20 years, Qin Guang and Wenwen definitely did not know each other for the longest time. However, the relationship between people was never determined by the length of time. Even if it was the first time a tortoise met a mung bean, once they saw eye to eye, they could still become bosom friends. At least in Qin Guang's opinion, his feelings for Wenwen were really not romantic. He also knew that with their identities he really did not deserve her. However, if one were to ask who was the most important in Qin Guang's heart now besides his parents, the next would be Wenwen. After waiting for about 10 minutes, Bai Fan returned to the dormitory with a big bag of breakfast. Lin Jingwei and Xiong Jinka, who were lying on the bed pretending to be dead, instantly came back to life. They jumped out of the bed and wolfed down the food. "Brother Guang, do you want to go to the morning class? There are only 3 classes left for the White-Faced Devil's environmental biology. I don't know if he will call attendance this time. I heard that if you are caught by him, your usual scores for the final exam will be directly reset to 0. Lin Jingwei reminded carefully. He also knew that Qin Guang had been lying on the chair all night last night and thought that he would probably stay in the dormitory to sleep in. Qin Guang shook his head. "I still have some things to do in the morning, so I won't be going. If he calls attendance, you guys can help me answer. If he is strict, then forget it." It's fine. His usual scores will be reset to 0. Xiong Jinka exclaimed. Qin Guang shook his head indifferently. It's fine. If it's reset to 0, then so be it. As long as I can properly score 60 points in the final exam, my usual scores don't matter. After all, he had just come out of the transient sea. Qin Guang's mind was still immersed in his identity as the second mate of the En Royal. He could not adjust his mind. Of course, he also knew that this real world was his home. Not to mention other things, his family and friends were all here. After breakfast, the other three hurried to the school building. Qin Guang sat in front of the writing desk and stared blankly at the heavenly Holy Grail. Chapter 9. Gently lying on the table, Qin Guang stared at the surface of the Transcendent's Holy Grail with his bull-like eyes. His mind couldn't help but start to recall the bits and pieces of his time on the En Royal. That young and beautiful Captain Annie, who had the blood of the royal family, always liked to play dirty jokes on him. Once, Qin Guang took it seriously and snuck into Captain Annie's room in the middle of the night. As a result, he was ruthlessly beaten up by that woman and hung on the mast for an entire day. Thinking about it now, he still hated it to the core. An old Jack who liked to shave his beard with a huge blade that was even taller than a man. Every time he thought about that guy squatting on the side of the ship and shaving his face with that horrifying-looking blade, Qin Guang wanted to laugh. That little warnie who always liked to follow behind him and treat him as an idol. That Bartu who always got himself covered in wounds every time he fought. The memories he had in the Sea of Time were all that deep, hard for him to forget. Even though he knew that for him, that world was like a game, the game was just too real. Life was like a play and the play was like life, he couldn't tell the difference. Thinking about it, he had spent so much time in that world but only one night had passed in the outside world. At this moment, no matter how unhappy he was with the Emperor of the Azure, Qin Guang clearly understood the power of the Transcendent's Holy Grail. He had also been involved in something incredible. Little brat, what do you think? The test of the 3,000 worlds is quite interesting, right? Suddenly, the portrait of the beautiful woman in the ancient costume on the cup trembled slightly. A voice sounded in Qin Guang's mind. After waiting for a long time, the woman finally appeared again. Unfortunately, he wasn't pulled into the world within the cup. Qin Guang wanted to take revenge on her, but he couldn't just smash the cup, right? Yo. You little brat, you still dare to bite the hand that feeds you? You dare to slander me in your heart? Do you believe that I won't ask the Holy Grail to set the difficulty of your mission to purgatory next time? Do you know that there are 9 kinds of difficulty? The Sea of Moments is only the most basic one. Using the words of your world, in the transient sea, you are winning without doing anything. Emperor of the Azure angrily said. Qin Guang was also furious. He didn't care if it was difficult or not. He jumped up and said, "What good intentions? How could you drag me into such a weird thing without asking me whether I'm willing or not? Even if you're a Shen Huang, aren't you being too overbearing?" "I'm sorry, I'm just being overbearing. Now that you've boarded my boat, you can't get off." Emperor of the Azure was also an unreasonable person. Qin Guang said angrily, "What do you mean we can't go down?" "I quit." He was quitting. "Next time, I won't accept this annoying 3,000 worlds test." While Qin Guang's temper was exploding, Emperor of the Azure became calm instead. "I'm sorry. From the moment you dripped your blood on the heavenly Holy Grail to recognize you as its master, there was no way out for you. Since you've already accepted this mission, you can only walk this path to the end. Rejecting the 3,000 worlds test is equivalent to failing the test. There's only one outcome for you, death. Since when did I drip my blood on it to recognize me as its master?" Qin Guang didn't have this impression at all. He only felt that she was obviously trying to trick him. "Have you forgotten? When you were fighting with others, you used your hand to block the heavenly Holy Grail." Emperor of the Azure reminded him, kindly. Qin Guang's breathing stagnated. He recalled the scene when he was fighting with Zheng He and the rest. At that time he was astonished. After suffering such a heavy blow, the Grail was actually undamaged. His hand was also bleeding, but there wasn't a single drop of blood on the Grail. Now he finally understood. This was a freaking dripping blood on it to recognize its master. This was really bad luck. You're a divine weapon, how can you be so casual? Don't you fast for 3 days, bathe and change your clothes before you drip your blood on it to recognize its master? Don't you need to set up a huge 6-pointed star formation to change the color of the wind and clouds? He couldn't help but feel weak all over. He sat on the chair and couldn't come back to his senses for a while. 10,000 divine beasts whizzed past his mind. Look at you, it's as if you've been wronged. Do you know that this heavenly holy grail is one of the top 10 supreme divine weapons in the endless realm of the gods? Even if there's only a 1 in 10,000 chance, millions of gods are willing to risk their lives in exchange for a chance to obtain the heavenly holy grail. Now that this supreme divine weapon has been given to you for free, you actually have a look of reluctance. Emperor of the Azure was speechless at Qin Guang's behavior. I understand what you're saying, but I simply don't understand what's so powerful about this heavenly holy grail. Qin Guang rolled his eyes. Moreover, didn't you say that I'll get benefits after I pass the test? Why don't you tell me where the benefits are? Emperor of the Azure grew impatient. Foolish mortal, I really can't communicate with you. You really didn't get any benefits? Think about it carefully. Alright, every time you complete a test, the heavenly holy grail needs to accumulate divine power again. I have to go and preside over the divine weapon formation. You can slowly complain here. Wait, now that I've come out, those people in the transient sea. Seeing that Emperor of the Azure was about to leave, Qin Guang hurriedly asked. Emperor of the Azure waved her hand indifferently. Don't worry, don't underestimate the profoundness of a supreme divine weapon personally created by the God Lord. Although the realm of the transient sea was created for you to pass the test, when the heavenly holy grail created this small world, it wasn't fabricated out of thin air. Instead, it truly had a beginning and an end, allowing it to become a complete and real world. Now that you've completed the test and escaped from the transient sea, the realm of the transient sea will continue to exist. You also don't have to worry that drinking water will affect the people in the transient sea. After you leave, this realm will exist independently and will no longer be affected. The power of the God Lord is far beyond your understanding. With a single breath, billions of universes will be born and destroyed. The universe that you're in now is just one of the billions of universes in my Father's God Lord of Chaos body. That's good, then I'm relieved. Wait, you still haven't told me how you got trapped in this heavenly holy grail. If I keep on completing the task, what will happen in the end? Also, you're obviously some god emperor, but why didn't the transient sea give me a single cent of divine power? It's just like a medieval pirate setting. That's not right. Qin Guang still wanted to ask many more questions, but unfortunately Supreme Divinity Luli was rather impatient. She left as soon as she said she would. On the screen, her figure flickered for a while, and then there was no more movement. Smiling bitterly, he'll ask her about these things the next time she comes out. Qin Guang stood up from the chair, lifted the cup, and looked at it carefully for a long time. Who would have thought that this unassuming glass cup was actually a supreme divine weapon? Your family's god realm is so fashionable. Regarding this heavenly holy grail, Qin Guang's understanding was still a blank. There were still many things that he could only guess. Perhaps he could only ask the Emperor of the Azure the next time she appeared. That's right, I still haven't gotten the reward for passing the test, right? You're trying to get something for nothing, that's not appropriate. I'm not convinced. Aren't you a supreme divine weapon? Then this reward should at least be something like conferring a god position on me, or at least giving me some divine power. For example, with a shake of my finger, I can make some island country that I don't like sink, or if I'm unhappy, I can go to Mars and build a palace or something. This is a real divine weapon. He didn't expect that the reward of the heavenly holy grail would already be in his account when he left the transient sea. It was the strong body that he had trained in the transient sea for a whole 20 years, as well as the combat ability of the dignified second officer of the An Royal. After experiencing 95 life and death struggles and torments, even Qin Guang himself didn't realize that he was no longer the same as he was in the past. Perhaps his proficient English was also a reward? Oh, wasn't Wenwen's rather indecent reward already in the bag? Chapter 10. Qin Guang spent the entire morning feeling awkward. He was supposed to go to class, but now he didn't have the mood to go to class. He couldn't calm down at all. As for revising for CET4, when he opened the test paper, he used less than a fifth of his usual time to complete the entire set of CET4 mock test paper. He felt that it was too boring. Bro, I'm not the same as before. He wanted to go out and take a stroll around the school, but he was thinking about the heavenly holy grail. Although he knew that the transient sea realm wouldn't be affected anymore, there was still a goddess empress living in the grail. Qin Guang was afraid that it would cause trouble if he left his sight. After thinking about it, he picked up the tea leaves from Lin Jingwei's desk and brewed a cup of strong tea with the heavenly holy grail. Then he carried it out of the door. Since he couldn't calm down and since he had nothing to do in the morning, he might as well run away with the car. No matter how awesome he was in the transient sea, since he was back in the real world, he still had to continue his life in the real world. He still had to earn money. He wondered how his parents were doing. Although the last time he called his family was only a week ago, in Qin Guang's heart, it had been 20 years. Sitting in the car, Qin Guang dialed his father's number. It was noisy on the other end of the phone. His father should be busy with the purchase of goods at this hour. For the past 10 years, his father had been living at this pace. However, he used to purchase goods for his family's hot pot restaurant, but now he was helping Uncle Zhou's family's hot pot restaurant. Brat, what are you doing? Isn't it Tuesday today? I remember that you have classes on Tuesday morning, right? Skipping class again? Are you asking for a beating? Judging from Qin Guoli's voice, Su Tao could tell that Qin Guang was busy. However, he actually remembered that Qin Guang had lessons in the morning. Qin Guang's mouth twitched. Dad, I do have classes, but it's not important. I'm skipping. I'm in the car now. I'm going to the sports car. Nonsense. Although our family is short of money, even if the sky falls, your father will still be there to hold it up, right? It's fine as long as you can manage your own living expenses. You don't even go to class. What's the meaning of this? Qin Guoli's tone suddenly became stern. This month, the Puss Corporation's free medicine is about to expire. You have to pay for next month's medicine, right? It seems to be 40,000? Qin Guang suddenly said. Qin Guoli's anger immediately disappeared. After a moment of silence, he said in a low voice, Son, you've worked hard. Qin Guang grinned. What's so hard about it? Dad, I've grown up a long time ago, so I'll think of a way to deal with the family matters. Don't tire yourself out too much. There seemed to be someone calling Qin Guoli. He just hummed twice, quickly hung up the phone and went to busy himself. Putting the phone on the shelf, Qin Guang picked up the teacup and took a sip. He secretly calculated that the special medicine of the Puss Corporation was usually paid for 3 months, and it was free for 3 months. When it was paid, it was at least 40,000 yuan a month. On average, it was 20,000 yuan a month for medicine expenses. As for his dad, no matter how generous Uncle Zhou was, it was impossible for the salary of the store manager to exceed 15,000 yuan a month. Even if his dad didn't eat or drink every month, and didn't have any other extra expenses, he was still short of 5,000 yuan. His sports car had to earn at least 6,000 to 7,000 yuan a month, so that the family's life could be basically guaranteed, and they could afford the Puss Corporation's medicine expenses. As for the family's bankruptcy liquidation, they had to pay off millions of debts. Qin Guang and Qin Guoli had no way to think about it now. They could only earn enough for the medical expenses and save the life of Qin Guang's mother. As for the other things, they would take it one step at a time. Hanging up the phone, he started the car, and Qin Guang began another day of sports car driving. At noon, Qin Guang parked the car on the side of the road and sat in the car eating a box lunch. Wenwen called. Where are you? Come over and have dinner together. Wenwen's voice was a little soft. It seemed that she was still under the bed. She must have stayed in bed until now. It was only one day, but hearing Wenwen's voice again seemed like a lifetime ago. Qin Guang was a little stunned, and then he came back to his senses. I am outside with the sports car. Let's have dinner together tonight. Don't you have classes in the morning? Wenwen was slightly surprised. I'm not in the mood to go, so I came out with the sports car. Qin Guang secretly wondered what was wrong with these people. This was not the first time he skipped class. Why did it seem like he was a big sinner? Alright then, what about you in the afternoon? Are you going to the library to read? Wenwen said again, don't forget the promise of this lady. After that, the woman even giggled. After chatting for a while, she became sober. I won't go to the library in the afternoon. Don't worry. In short, you can't run away. I'm thinking about you. Let's not talk about it anymore. There's an order. I'm leaving. After Qin Guang finished speaking, he hung up the phone. While playing with the phone, he was restless. If it was still the same level as yesterday, Qin Guang might feel that passing the CET4 exam was very difficult. But today the old man was different from the past. For the first time, he looked forward to the CET4 exam. He hated that time was too slow. He still had to wait for more than a month. Qin Guang drove the sports car all the way to the afternoon before he slowly drove the car back. In the past, if he drove for an entire day, he would definitely be so tired that his back would ache. When he got out of the car, he could hear the crisp sound of his joints cracking. But today, Qin Guang was amazing. He stayed in the car for at least 8 hours. When he got out of the car, he stretched his waist and moved his body. He actually didn't feel the slightest bit tired. Then he clenched his fists and felt that his muscles were much stronger than before. Qin Guang couldn't help but feel proud. After training hard in the sea of time for 20 years, his body wouldn't be inferior to a bodybuilder, right? On the surface, Qin Guang didn't look much stronger than before. But the structure of his entire body's muscles had undergone an earth-shattering change. If he took off his clothes, he would discover that the lines of his muscles could be said to be perfect. His muscles were extremely streamlined. Although he was strong, he wasn't bloated at all. Instead, he was filled with astonishing explosive power. Before he could take 2 steps, Wenwen was actually already waiting for him outside the car park. Seeing him from afar, she quickly walked over. When she got close to Qin Guang, this tomboy suddenly stopped. She looked at him up and down with a bewildered expression. Who are you? Qin Guang rolled his eyes. Stop messing around. Who else could I be? Wenwen walked over slowly. She squinted her eyes. Something's wrong. Something's really wrong. You can hide it from others, but you can't hide it from me. Hearing those words, Qin Guang was startled. Wasn't Wenwen's gaze a little too formidable? On the surface, he didn't look any different from yesterday. Even if he had grown stronger, there weren't any changes to his physique. This big sister's observation skills were too sharp. Are you Sherlock Holmes or Conan Edogawa? Chapter 11. Just as he was thinking about this, Wenwen waved her hand indifferently. Forget it. How could it be? It's okay. Just think of it as me being oversensitive. I'm too nervous. What are you so nervous about? Are you nervous when you see me? Have I become more handsome? Do you have feelings for me? Is it because when you think about the old man being able to? Do you feel shy deep down in your heart? Dong. My lunchbox is about to be beaten out of my face. You violent woman, control your strength a little. Qin Guang's body was bent on the ground. He angrily criticized Wenwen, the violent tomboy who didn't know how to control her strength. In his heart, he was secretly glad that he managed to get away with it. He didn't expect that Wenwen would let him off so easily and pretend that nothing had happened. However, Qin Guang knew that she must have discovered something. She was extraordinarily good at fighting. Qin Guang couldn't help but wonder if it was because she was also an expert that she could see through the seemingly inconspicuous but earth-shattering changes in his body. Also, did she sense the smell of blood that he tried hard to hide? However, since Wenwen didn't take the initiative to point it out, Qin Guang wouldn't look for trouble. He really couldn't explain this kind of thing to Wenwen. The two of them walked out of the school gate and went to the snack street at the back of the school. On the way, Wenwen saw the hot pot restaurant next to them. She was a little hungry, but she didn't ask to eat hot pot in the end. After what happened in Qin Guang's family, Wenwen didn't want him to recall it. Although she usually looked careless, she was quite meticulous sometimes. In the past, Qin Guang's family had opened a hot pot restaurant in his hometown. Furthermore, it was the largest hot pot restaurant in the county with the best business. However, last year, something big happened in the restaurant. Nearly 100 people got food poisoning in Qin Guang's family's hot pot restaurant. Just the compensation alone broke his originally wealthy family into pieces. Qin Guang knew that with his father's careful business, there was absolutely no problem with the ingredients. It seemed like a simple case of food poisoning, but there must be a deeper reason behind it. However, this matter had become an unsolved case. At the time of the incident, Qin Guang's father wasn't in the restaurant, so no one knew what the problem was. Although Qin Guang swore to find the truth behind the food poisoning incident, even the police couldn't find any clues, so how could a student like him do anything? After that, Qin Guang's family couldn't recover. Not only did they go bankrupt, but they also owed more than 5 million yuan in debt. When it rains, it pours. After more than 2 months, just when the family tried their best to get Qin Guili out of detention for more than 2 months, Qin Guang's mother was diagnosed with an illness. On average, she needed 20,000 yuan in medical expenses every month. Therefore, as a university student, Qin Guang had no choice but to drive a sports car to earn money. Do you want to eat hot pot? Qin Guang's observation skills were sharp. Wenwen grinned. Yes, I do. I'm just afraid that you'll be sad. Qin Guang waved his hand indifferently. What's there to be sad about? I'm not a little girl. I'm not that weak. Let's go. It's my treat today. I haven't eaten hot pot in a long time. I miss it. The two went upstairs together. Wenwen glanced at Qin Guang and found that he was still holding the cup in his hand. She wondered, why do you carry your cup everywhere you go? You didn't have this habit before. Qin Guang smiled and said, don't I want to read and drive a sports car recently? I'm afraid that I can't keep up with my energy, so I made a cup of tea and carried it with me. When I'm tired, I can take a sip. It feels great. TSKT is not a stimulant. Feels great. You look like an old man. My grandfather is like you, holding a purple clay teapot wherever he goes. If you want to pretend to be a petty bourgeoisie, at least get a purple clay one. The fiberglass cup is too much. Wenwen said as she grabbed the cup from Qin Guang's hand and looked at it. So vulgar. What mountains and rivers, plums, orchids, bamboo and chrysanthemums. You actually printed a picture of a beautiful woman dressed so skimpily. It's simply vulgar. Aren't you afraid of embarrassing yourself? Wenwen said in a disdainful tone as she played with the cup. Qin Guang snatched the cup back in his hand angrily. What do you know? This is what I like. A fair and graceful lady is a gentleman's match. He was panicking. He was afraid that when Wenwen played with the cup, the Emperor of the Azure would suddenly make a move. Fortunately, the Emperor of the Azure might be busy at the moment and didn't notice that someone was criticizing him outside. Otherwise, the words vulgar would be enough to make that crazy woman, oh no, the goddess of the Azure, jump up and down. After a full meal, Wenwen dragged Qin Guang to the library again. Regardless of whether he was willing or not, she forced him to look at the revision materials for level 4. In order not to let Wenwen notice the abnormality in his body, Qin Guang deliberately did many wrong questions on purpose. It wasn't easy for him to muddle through. When the two of them separated, Wenwen seemed to want to say something but stopped. She still wanted to test Qin Guang's body to find out what had changed. But in the end, she glanced at the small forest not far from the female dormitory from the corner of her eye. Under the dim yellow street light, there seemed to be a black shadow flashing by. Wenwen didn't say anything in the end and went straight upstairs. After getting through with much difficulty, Qin Guang let out a long sigh of relief in his heart. He turned and walked towards his dormitory. In the past, when he was still an ordinary person, Qin Guang felt that it was strange for a girl like Wenwen to be so good at fighting. Now, he had become a very good fighter, especially since he had learned a lot of fighting skills from Captain Annie on the Inn Royal. He could clearly feel that Wenwen, this tomboy, was clearly a martial artist from time to time. And it wasn't just for show, it was definitely quite fierce. He had never asked her what her family did. He only knew that she had a very powerful background and was very powerful. Now it seemed that it wasn't that simple. Just as he walked forward with his head down in a daze, two people suddenly appeared in front of him and blocked his way. Looking up, it was actually Zheng He again. He brought people to stir up trouble again. He was like a ghost that wouldn't go away. Last time he had brought 5 sports students with him, but they were beaten to a pulp by him. This time, Zheng He only brought one person and still dared to come. It seemed that he had found an expert. At this time, Qin Guang was walking to the small path behind the male dormitory. At this time there weren't many people coming and going. Of course, even if he was seen, Zheng He didn't care. No one in the school dared to interfere with his affairs. Qin Guang, you won't be so lucky this time. Zheng He stood there with his hands crossed, a sneer on his face. The person beside Zheng He wasn't tall, only 1.75 meters, a little shorter than Qin Guang. He didn't look very strong, but the martial arts suit he was wearing revealed his identity. He was a martial artist. This person had his hands behind his back, his face raised high, his nostrils facing Qin Guang, his eyes slanted, his legs slightly open and a pair of cloth shoes on his feet. Although he wasn't tall or strong, but this simple movement and posture gave people a feeling that he would hurt people at any time. I heard that you always have a stick with you, but it's useless in front of our Korean national martial art, Taekwondo. I will break every bone in your body inch by inch. The man spoke in broken Chinese and arrogantly said, Taekwondo. Qin Guang raised his eyebrows. This time the person Zheng He found was really a professional. But so what? I don't have a stick with me, but so what? Qin Guang, this is the president of our school's Taekwondo club, Mr. Kim Jongpan from Korea, 3rd Dan black belt. Later you can have a good taste of Mr. Kim's skills. Zheng He saw that Qin Guang wasn't very nervous, so he thought he didn't know how powerful he was, so he deliberately said, Let me tell you, your stick is only useful against ordinary people, but it is meaningless in front of a real master like Mr. Kim. Mr. Kim, do it, break his legs. Zheng He obviously didn't want to waste any more time, so he directly asked Kim Jongpan to do it. Qin Guang's eyes turned cold. Interesting, as the second officer of the Inn Royal, he had killed more or less hundreds of people in the Sea of Moments, and the number of times he died was as high as 95 times. This was also a skill that he gained from climbing mountains of knives and seas of fire. I want to see the power of this so-called Taekwondo. Let's see whether your 3rd Dan black belt is more brutal, or my second officer's killing methods are more incisive. Zheng He wouldn't even dream that after one night, Qin Guang was still the same Qin Guang, but there was a change in him. Chapter 12. In another corner that no one noticed, Wenwen was stretching her head and looking over. If it was in the past, seeing that Qin Guang was blocked by Zheng He and his men, Wenwen would have already rushed out. But today Qin Guang gave Wenwen a different feeling. She also wanted to see what changes had happened to Qin Guang. However, the moment Kim Jongpan made his move, Wenwen's heart tightened and she wanted to rush out. Because she could clearly see that Kim Jongpan's move was extremely ruthless. It was obvious that he wanted to severely injure Qin Guang the moment he came. Damn it, Zheng He wanted Qin Guang's life. Although she already knew that Zheng He was arrogant and domineering, Wenwen really didn't expect him to be so daring. He actually let Kim Jongpan hit him hard. When Wenwen wanted to make a move, it was already too late. On the other side, Kim Jongpan had already leaped into the air. His right leg drew a semicircle in the air and chopped down towards Qin Guang's shoulder from top to bottom. In Taekwondo, the most important thing was the leg technique. Kim Jongpan's movement was big and wide. The twisting of his body allowed the strength of his leg to be exerted to the extreme. The whip kick even brought along the whistling sound of the wind. If he was hit directly, perhaps dislocating his shoulder would be a light punishment. It was very likely that Qin Guang's collarbone would be broken in an instant. It's over. Wenwen was at least 50 meters away from here. She watched as Kim Jongpan's chop was getting closer and closer to Qin Guang. Her body was a little weak. At this moment, Qin Guang, who was frozen on the spot, suddenly moved. He casually threw the cup in his hand onto the flower bed beside him. He didn't make any fancy movements, but he took a step forward and placed his hands on his shoulders. You want to catch my leg so easily? See if I don't break the bones in your hands. Kim Jongpan thought to himself as he watched coldly, his movements still smooth. With a muffled sound, Kim Jongpan's kick landed on Qin Guang's forearms. Contrary to his expectations, Qin Guang's hands were slightly lowered, and his entire body was a few centimeters shorter. He actually caught Kim Jongpan's powerful and heavy kick. What? Kim Jongpan was shocked. Just now, he had underestimated his opponent, so he used this rather arrogant move at the first sight. After all, Zheng He had told him that this was just an ordinary college student. Although he fought very fiercely, he was just an unorthodox Taekwondo master. He could not be mentioned in the same breath as Kim Jongpan, a Taekwondo master who had gone through orthodox training. In the end, his leg was blocked. I'll let you be arrogant. Qin Guang roared, and both of his hands grabbed fiercely, pressing Kim Jongpan's right leg on his shoulder. He suddenly stretched out his left hand and grabbed Kim Jongpan's collar from the bottom up. His right hand exerted force and pressed Kim Jongpan's upper body from top to bottom. At the same time, Qin Guang lifted his right knee, and his knee was directly aimed at Kim Jongpan's spine. If this knee was solid, Kim Jongpan's spine would definitely be broken. Seeing that the situation was not good, Kim Jongpan twisted his body, and forcibly turned his body 90 degrees. His left leg was thrown from the other direction, and it went straight for Qin Guang's head. The tip of his foot was aimed at Qin Guang's temple, forcing him to free up his right hand to defend. At the same time, Kim Jongpan exerted force from his waist and abdomen, and bent his back forward. At the same time, he slightly leaned to the side and just happened to dodge Qin Guang's knee. In the instant that they exchanged blows, Kim Jongpan knew that he had been tricked by Zheng He. He was not an ordinary person. Although he did not know what sect this guy was from, the methods he had displayed showed that this person was definitely an expert. His reaction was extremely fast and his methods were fierce. Even if he did not know what sect he was from, and could only be classified as unorthodox, this was definitely an unorthodox method that had been tempered hundreds and thousands of times. It was a real killing method, and in terms of realm, it did not lose to the so-called Korean Judo or Taekwondo at all. However, after I break free, I can still use my mid-range leg technique to defeat him. Just as Kim Jongpan was thinking about this, after blocking his left leg with his right hand, Qin Guang actually used both his left and right hands to grab both of his legs. Then he pounced forward and with force from both hands he grabbed Kim Jongpan and threw him straight down. Moreover, because Qin Guang was moving straight forward as he swung Kim Jongpan's body like a hammer, Kim Jongpan's back slammed into Zheng He, who was watching from behind in a daze. Zheng He could not dodge in time, and was hit by Kim Jongpan's back. On the other side, Qin Guang had already let go. Taking advantage of the moment when the two of them collided, his body retreated slightly, and he raised his leg again. A powerful and heavy kick landed on Kim Jongpan's lower abdomen. With a pu sound, Kim Jongpan felt as if his intestines were about to be kicked out. He was blasted backward by the force and he slammed into Zheng He, who had already fallen to the ground. Cough, 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 cough. Kim Jongpan turned over, clutching his stomach as he lay on the ground, coughing desperately. Chen Guang's kick had already left him with internal injuries, causing him to lose the ability to resist for a moment. A moment of underestimation caused Kim Jongpan to suffer a crushing defeat. Although Chen Guang's methods did not have any patterns and seemed very barbaric, it was still effective. This was the fighting technique that he had learned on the En Royal for 20 years. It did not need to be fancy, nor did it have any style, but it was extremely practical. If it was not for the fact that he did not have a suitable weapon in his hands, Kim Jongpan would have been a corpse on the ground by now if he really fought with his life on the line. Wenwen, who was rushing forward, suddenly stopped. With a flash, she hid behind a big tree. Her heart was pounding. In this short moment she saw a completely different Chen Guang from the past. What exactly happened to him? Wenwen was puzzled, but she knew that nothing would happen to Chen Guang today. The one who would be at a disadvantage would only be Zheng He. On the other side, although Zheng He was knocked to the ground, he was not injured, but he was shocked. He knew how powerful Kim Jongpan was. Otherwise he would not have brought only Kim Jongpan this time. However, he never expected that this Taekwondo 3rd Dan black belt expert would be easily defeated by Chen Guang with just a few punches and kicks. At this moment, Chen Guang stood in front of him and slapped him hard on the face. Zheng He, I said that I wanted to kill you. Did you not believe me? Zheng He was stunned by Chen Guang's sudden slap. He sat on the ground, covered his face and looked at Chen Guang. He, what about you? Do you think I am joking with you? You brought people to find trouble with me again and again. Didn't I just make you lose face in front of Wenwen? You want to break my hand? Break my leg? Is it great to be rich? Can money really make a dog's gut so strong? Have you ever thought that since you are so rich, if you really force me into a dead end, I will drag you down to hell with me? What would that feel like? Anyway, I am also a poor wretch, right? You don't even give me a way out. Then should I just die with you? That would be more straightforward and end all troubles once and for all? Chen Guang grabbed Zheng He's collar and lifted him up. He looked down at him and stared at him with a dangerous glint in his eyes. After fighting in the Sea of Moments for 20 years and killing hundreds of people with his own hands, he released his murderous aura without holding back. Chen Guang also knew that with Zheng He's family background, if he was determined to not let him off and continued to pester him, sooner or later, he would really be smashed to death by this guy with money. Money can make the devil push the millstone, it can also make people crazy. Maybe there would really be a day when Zheng He got involved in a murder case and he would need to pay the price to become a mature and steady rich second generation. However, Chen Guang didn't want his life to become a stepping stone for Zheng He's growth. He had to let Zheng He understand that even though he was poor, he was still a wolf. If you force me into a dead end, I will drag you along with me. At this moment, Chen Guang indeed had such a plan. As long as Zheng He showed such thoughts again, he would really think of a way to take Zheng He's life. After killing many people in the Sea of Moments, Chen Guang already had his own experience in killing people. It was unknown who was the lucky one. Under Chen Guang's naked threat, Zheng He was afraid. This time he was really afraid. Chen Guang, calm down, calm down. I didn't mean it that way. Zheng He said with a trembling voice. Chen Guang continued to stare at him. Then what do you mean? You better make it clear at once. Either you give me a reason to kill you, or you give me a reason to spare your life. In my logic, there is no such thing as a compromise. Today you brought a Taekwondo expert to find trouble with me. Tomorrow, how would I know if you will directly find an assassin? After all, in your eyes, you can do whatever you want with money, right? Zheng He shook his head like a rattled drum. I didn't think that way, I really didn't. Fine, I will let you off today. I will warn you for the last time. If you are interested in Wenwen, then you can go chase her yourself. It has nothing to do with me. Of course, Wenwen wouldn't be interested in trash like you. As long as you don't come and bother me. Chen Guang threw Zheng He on the ground heavily. He turned around to pick up the heavenly holy grail and walked towards the dormitory. If it wasn't as a last resort, he wouldn't really kill Zheng He. Right now he was just threatening him. After all, this was the real world and not the Sea of Time. The lives in the real world were much more valuable than the lives in the Sea of Time. Chen Guang also wouldn't easily turn himself into a wanted criminal. There was still such a heavy financial pressure at home. He still had to support himself with his father. Wenwen, who was hiding behind a big tree, heard the last words that Chen Guang said to Zheng He. Bitterness appeared on her face. Did he really think that way? It doesn't matter if others come to chase me? Although she didn't know why Qin Guang's body would have such a change, Wenwen knew that she couldn't take the initiative to ask him. Perhaps, one day when he was willing to take the initiative to tell her, he would naturally tell her. Why should she ask? Even if he was much better at fighting than before, the two of them were still people from different worlds, weren't they? His thoughts weren't wrong. Before returning to the female dormitory, Wenwen's gaze turned towards the small forest at the side. After a moment of silence, she said, "Second uncle, help me give a call to Zheng Yunhao from New Ray. Tell his son to behave himself and not do anything too out of line. Otherwise, I won't be so easy to talk to. Little Wen, that Qin Guang has hidden himself very well. Should I?" In the darkness, a deep voice of a middle-aged man sounded. Wenwen's eyes widened as if her reverse scale had been touched. "He is my friend, just a friend. You don't need to test him." "All right." The middle-aged man's voice sounded a little unwilling, but he didn't say anything else. Chapter 13. In the end, second uncle didn't listen to Wenwen's request. Although his duty here was to secretly protect Wenwen's safety in the family, he was Wenwen's elder, not her follower or bodyguard. It was impossible for him to completely follow Wenwen's arrangements. Especially when he suddenly discovered that Qin Guang, who had been close to Wenwen for 3 whole years, seemed to have changed into a different person overnight. This kind of earth-shaking change, Wenwen could still hold it in. However, second uncle was an old man and had seen a lot of things, but he had never heard of such a thing. Qin Guang's change was too big, and it made him instantly alert. Therefore, second uncle felt that there was only one possibility, and that was that this Qin Guang wasn't an ordinary person from the beginning. It was just that he had been hiding very well in the past, pretending to be an ordinary person and slowly getting close to Wenwen. Today he was forced into a desperate situation by Zheng He, so he had no choice but to show some of his true abilities. "I don't care if you're a spy sent by any family or a traitor. It's my dereliction of duty to let you hide by Wenwen's side for a whole 3 years. However, let me personally make a move and test your skills. I'll definitely be able to find some clues from your inner force. Don't even think about hiding anymore." Looking at the middle-aged man in linen clothes in front of him with lean short hair, Qin Guang felt creepy. He also didn't know what was going on. Today after the run he didn't go to find Wenwen, but went straight back to the dormitory. In the end he met this man on the way back. This strange middle-aged man opened his mouth and asked Qin Guang to go to the remote grove behind the dormitory to have a heart-to-heart talk. Faced with this kind of excessive, unreasonable request, Qin Guang at that time refused. "I'm not familiar with you. You're already so old and your arms and legs are old. What if I deal with you like how I dealt with Kim Jongpan and accidentally injure you?" Qin Guang expressed extreme disdain towards this middle-aged man. However, his aloofness and arrogance persisted until this man slapped a birch tree that was as thick as the mouth of a bowl, leaving a 2-finger-deep palm print on the tree trunk. Then the tree collapsed with a loud bang. Qin Guang only wanted to say 2 words in his heart about the middle-aged man's attitude and means when he invited him to have a heart-to-heart talk. "Uncle, let's talk this out. Don't get physical, okay? We are both cultured people and we have to be reasonable in everything. I respect you as an elder, and I will not go against what you say." It was impossible for Qin Guang to remain calm. Although he was the second officer of the An Royal, and although he was quite good at fighting and had taken advantage of the fact that Kim Jongpan had underestimated him yesterday, he had easily defeated this so-called third Dan Taekwondo black belt. But I'm still a normal person. Tell me, why did you leave a palm print on the tree with just 1 slap? If you're so powerful, why didn't you say so earlier? You want to ask me something in the woods? Although I don't know what you want to do, I can't just not give you some face. Standing beside the woods, the cool summer breeze blew on Qin Guang's body, making him feel chilly. "Mister, if you have something to say, just say it. There's no one else here, so there's no need to go into the woods, right?" Stopping at the edge of the woods, Qin Guang was unwilling to take another step forward. Based on his understanding of the school's surveillance system, the two of them were standing at the boundary of the surveillance cameras. If anything happened here, they would be able to find traces from the surveillance cameras. If he really followed this person into the woods like a fool, he was afraid that he would really be at the mercy of this person. This uncle's strength was too frightening, he had no choice but to be afraid. The reason why he was willing to follow this strange person a few steps was because Qin Guang had fought in the Sea of Moments for 20 years, so he was very sensitive to the killing intent of others. Although the middle-aged man had a rigid, zombie-like face, he did not reveal any real killing intent. Although he did not know where he came from, there shouldn't be any irreconcilable hatred between them. Cowardly rat. Seeing that Qin Guang did not even dare to follow him into the woods, the second uncle only snorted coldly, then suddenly turned around and punched towards Qin Guang's abdomen. At this moment, Qin Guang felt his hair stand on end. This person's seemingly simple punch actually gave him a feeling that he could not resist. In the sea of moments, although Qin Guang had not gone through any systematic training, he had experienced tens of hundreds of battles and faced many life-and-death situations. But this was the first time he had felt this way because of someone else's punch. So savage. Before he could think about what was going on, Qin Guang raised his hands and blocked in front of the middle-aged man's fist. With a bang, Qin Guang was forced back several steps by the force of the punch, his back hitting a tree before he could barely stabilize himself. But his arms felt extremely numb, and he could not even lift them up. Just who was this person? So powerful. When he was hit, other than the man's own strength, there seemed to be a strange force circulating in his hands for a short period of time. If it wasn't for his quick reaction, he would have been injured by taking a few steps back and dispersing the man's strength. Strange, no inner strength? After the middle-aged man in front of him punched, he did not continue to chase after him. Instead, he had a strange expression on his face and looked at his own hands in confusion, as if he did not dare to believe something. How come you don't have inner strength? The middle-aged man suddenly took a few steps forward and asked. Qin Guang scratched his head in confusion. What inner strength? Are you talking about Qigong? I have never learned it. I have no idea what you are trying to say. It really doesn't seem like he is pretending. It seems like he really doesn't know? Second uncle muttered in a low voice. He had never doubted his own judgment of people. If Qin Guang was really a threat to Wenwen, he would have eliminated this hidden threat long ago. Today he could not restrain himself from probing Qin Guang, but it was only because Qin Guang had changed too much last night. You're on your own. After confirming that Qin Guang had not practiced any internal martial arts, and that he was only good at fighting because he was strong enough, second uncle was no longer interested in probing him. At the same time, the phone in his pocket vibrated. It seemed that Wenwen had sensed his actions and called to vent her anger. The middle-aged man suddenly turned around and disappeared into the depths of the small forest. Only then did Qin Guang come to his senses. That's right. The method he used to numb my hands was most likely the inner strength he was talking about. Heavens, it doesn't matter if this person is crazy or not, that's the standard of inner strength. Senior. Don't go. Senior, please wait. Senior, do you think I am talented? Are you interested in taking me as your disciple or something? Senior. Senior, come back. Qin Guang ran into the forest, but the other party had already disappeared. I missed my chance. Qin Guang was so angry that he stomped his feet and went back in embarrassment. Qin Guang had forgotten that when he first met Wenwen, he was accidentally punched in the stomach by Wenwen and almost suffered internal bleeding. In fact, Wenwen also had inner strength. It was just that at that time, Qin Guang was still a standard ordinary person. In addition, Wenwen's inner strength was not as obvious as the middle-aged man's today, so he didn't notice it. However, when he chased after him, second uncle, who was hiding behind the tree, was completely convinced that this kid was really just an ordinary person. You still want to take me as your master? You're really stupid. Aren't you surrounded by the eldest daughter of the Wen family? If you want to learn, go learn from her. It's good enough that I don't beat you up, but you still want to learn inner strength from me? Dream on. Although I don't know why little one doesn't want to teach me, I don't have to be a good person, right? Second uncle Wen rubbed the knuckles of his right hand and grinned. Although this brat had never practiced inner strength before, how could his bones be so hard? I knocked them until they were bruised. Chapter 14. For the next 2 days, Qin Guang's life didn't seem to have changed much. The person was still the same person, the car was still the same car. When he was in a good mood, he would go to class. When he was in a bad mood, he would run a car and earn a few $100s. When he first came out of the realm of the transiency, Qin Guang still felt that since he had become so awesome and had become the God Emperor, oh no, the Redeemer, that Emperor of the Azure mentioned, then shouldn't there be some divine light descending from the heavens, an auspicious sign appearing, and a meteoric rise? This kind of thought was the most intense after he easily knocked Kim Jongpan to the ground with just a few punches and kicks. Of course, just as he was about to float away, second uncle Wen taught him a lesson. Yes, you are indeed a redeemer. After being tempered by the realm of the transient sea, you are no longer the same as before, but you still can't leave such a deep mark on the tree with just one slap. But what really made Qin Guang slowly wake up was not only this matter, but in these few days he realized that he didn't become particularly cool. The matters at home were still there, the financial gap was still so big, he didn't have the ability to cure his mother's illness, and he also didn't have the ability to wave his hand and make a few million to pay off his debts. If he had to go to a sports car, he still had to run. If he had to go to class, he still had to go. In the end, he was still a seemingly ordinary university student. The unusual excitement in Qin Guang's heart gradually calmed down after a few days of settling down. Rice must be eaten bite by bite, the road must also be walked step by step, not thinking in his heart, I am awesome, I am against the heavens, I can really be invincible in the world with a blink of an eye. But he wasn't in a hurry. The female rogue also said that what awaited him next was the test of the 3,000 worlds. Just the first transient sea had already made such a big change in him. According to the naughty nature of the blue cat, there might really be another 2,999 tests waiting for him. As long as he completed the test of the heavenly holy grail step by step, sooner or later, he would be able to slowly become stronger. He just didn't know when he would be able to be like that middle-aged man and possess that so-called inner force. Qin Guang was not anxious at all. He was only looking forward to the next trial of the heavenly holy grail. Although the female gangster was not very reliable and spoke without rhyme or reason, the power of the heavenly holy grail could not be faked. In the blink of an eye, it was the weekend. While Bai Nyangzi, Xiong'er, and Xiao Linzi were happily playing Dota 2, Qin Guang drove out early. Children from poor families should take charge of the household early. The time to pay the medical fees to the Puss Corporation was getting closer and closer. Yesterday, Qin Guang and his dad checked the accounts together. There was still a gap of about 1,000 yuan in cash. Qin Guang planned to take advantage of the weekend to run more trips. By next Tuesday he should be able to collect the 1,000 yuan. He was a little tired. After calculating, he would have to run for at least 20 hours in these 2 days. But with his current physical condition he should be able to withstand this kind of continuous driving. If he were to say tired, how could he not be tired? But if he were to say bitter, Qin Guang did not feel bitter at all. He knew that every kilometer he ran now was like a pill entering his mother's mouth. According to the Puss Corporation and the doctor, although this chronic disease was difficult to cure, as long as she persisted in taking the medicine for another 3 years, the dosage could be gradually reduced. After 5 years, perhaps she would only need to take another special medicine every month. At that time, his mother would completely recover to a normal person. Thinking of this, Qin Guang felt that his hand holding the steering wheel became stronger. At this time he was slowly circling the road around Painting Lake. He had just gotten off the car here. It was 2 girls who took a taxi from the Dachuan Film Academy. They were quite beautiful and lively and they kept chattering in the car. They were not as difficult to deal with as some of the beautiful female passengers who sat in Qin Guang's car. Especially when they heard that Qin Guang was also a student of Gokyo University, they found a common language after they came out on the weekend to drive a sports car. These 2 girls came from the school to Painting Lake. It was said that there would be a film crew shooting at Painting Lake today, and there would be a lot of big stars. The 2 girls did not expect to be chosen by the big stars in the film crew and enter the entertainment circle. They just came to chase stars and experience the feeling of a film shooting at a close distance. When they got off the car, the 2 girls invited Qin Guang very enthusiastically to park the car at the side of the parking lot and watch the excitement with them. Although the 2 girls were very enthusiastic, Qin Guang still rejected them. Beautiful girls were good and stars were wonderful, but earning money was more important. Before the incident at home, Qin Guang might have had some extra thoughts about these 2 girls from the film academy. But now he really did not have those thoughts. He no longer had the capital to be naive. Moreover, although these 2 girls were from the performance department of the film academy, they were actually not as beautiful as Wenwen. Qin Guang felt that although he was a loser, his standards had been forcibly raised by Wenwen. Thinking about it carefully, he did not know whether it was lucky or unlucky to have such a close friend. Painting Lake was especially lively today. Many people were leaning on the stone lion railings by the lake and looking into the lake with binoculars. There were also many young and old people who were commenting on the lake. Even the Tonghulu seller was especially enthusiastic. It was obviously the work of the film crew. Thinking of the 2 stars' names, Qin Guang was actually a little tempted. But in the end he decided to turn around and drive somewhere else. He would not be able to get any more orders at Painting Lake for a while. How could the people here bear to leave when they heard that Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage were shooting at the lake? That was Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage. In the whole country, celebrities were like carps crossing the river, but there was only a small group of people who could really remember their names, remember their looks, and even be familiar with them. Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage belonged to the top of this small group. Although these two people were not even 20 years old, they had already debuted 10 years ago. At that time, the two of them were still child stars. They played two little maids in the popular TV series, Princess in Arms, 10 years ago. From then on, the two of them had an unstoppable path to stardom. They appeared in TV series and movies one after another. It was unknown whether it was God's blessing, but the two of them were simply lucky. The TV series and movies they appeared in were very popular, making the two of them even more dazzling. But this was still not the main reason why the two of them became national idols. After all, the impression they left on the world was still at the level of two young girls who were very good at acting. In this world, they were not the only ones who could act. It was not until 2 years ago that the two of them released a music album as an idol group for the first time. Only then did the world realize that the two young girls who were thought to only be able to act could actually sing so well. What was even more commendable was that they wrote and composed nearly half of the songs in their albums. At the end of the year, the duo Left and Right Hand swept the annual Golden Melody chart in one fell swoop, winning 3 awards: Best Album, Best Artist Group, and Best Single. Everyone suddenly realized that not only could they sing and write songs, but they really had the ability of a music industry superstar. The result of the blossoming of film, television, and singing pushed the two young girls who were only 18 years old at that time to the peak. The world finally understood that the two young girls who were very good at acting were not simply good at singing. The fact that they swept the Golden Melody Awards was a direct reflection of their ability and excellent market response. For a moment, there was a burst of exclamation in the music industry. The film and television industry was even more surprised. These two young girls actually had this kind of talent behind the scenes. They were good at acting at the level of a movie queen, they were good at singing at the level of a heavenly queen, they were good at composing at the level of a master. When so many factors appeared in the same two people, the brewing chemical reaction was beyond imagination. Since then, no one could stop the Left and Right Hand from sweeping the country. In addition, Jin Shirui had a gentle temperament. Every move she made exuded the aura of a lady from a respectable family. Jiang Yage was cheerful and lively. Just by standing there, she made people feel that she was full of energy. The two of them had their own characteristics. Ever since their debut, there had never been any negative rumors about them. This made the Left and Right Hand duo become an idol and strength duo that was suitable for all ages. Although Chen Guang was not a fan of celebrities, he had long heard of these two names. When he drove, he would occasionally play the duo's songs. They were indeed very pleasant to listen to. However, celebrities were like the clouds in the sky. No matter how beautiful they looked, they couldn't be seen or touched. So it was better for him to earn some money to support his family. Just as Chen Guang sighed, a violent explosion came from the lake, as if something had exploded. Immediately, the crowd surrounding the stone lion fence suddenly let out a burst of screams. The screams came abruptly, but they came one after another. Some timid girls even screamed at the top of their lungs while their bodies went limp and they lay on the ground crying. Chen Guang's heart trembled. Something had happened. Chapter 15. Chen Guang didn't care if it was against the rules or not. He turned the car around and parked it at the curb near Painting Lake. He jumped out of the car, locked it, and rushed to the stone lion fence. He stared at the lake. In the middle of the lake, a pleasure boat was teetering on the verge of collapse. Thick smoke was billowing from the rear cabin. Clearly the explosion had come from the boat. Chen Guang narrowed his eyes and looked carefully. He realized that the lake water was rapidly pouring in from the bottom of the boat. The boat was sinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. Based on the current speed, the boat, which was worth millions, would sink completely in less than a minute or two. It was a mess on the boat. Many of the crew members were at a loss. Some wanted to jump into the lake, while others tried to run to the bottom of the boat to plug the hole. What happened? What happened? After all, Chen Guang hadn't seen the scene of the incident first. He only felt that the scene was a little shocking, so he pulled an old man beside him and asked. The old man let out a long sigh. Oh no. Everything was fine just now. I don't know what happened, but the back of that beautiful boat suddenly exploded. There were so many sparks. I don't know what happened, but it's definitely not good. Chen Guang sighed. It was about the same as he thought. It was most likely the boat's rear engine had exploded. He just hoped that the people on the boat weren't injured. The lifeguards on the opposite shore had already gone into the water. Some onlookers who knew how to swim also took off their clothes and prepared to go into the water to save people. The crew was filming on the boat. There were at least 30 to 40 people on it, and there were definitely a few who knew how to swim. Looking at the location of the explosion, no one was injured. With so many people going into the water, there shouldn't be any deaths. This was a matter of human fate. People were made of flesh. Although he wasn't familiar with the people on the crew, he was relieved after confirming that nothing serious would happen to them. Just at this moment, someone cried out in alarm. That's not right. Something doesn't seem right. When the explosion happened, the two beautiful female celebrities were still hanging from the wire. That's right, look over there, the two of them are still in midair while holding each other's hand. Jin Shiyue and Jiang Yage were the prettiest female stars in the crew. Qin Guang looked up. Sure enough, the two girls were dressed in ancient chivalrous costumes. They were hugging each other in midair, trembling in fear. Jin Shiyue seems to be trying to help Jiang Yage untie the wire with trembling hands. However, the more nervous she is, the more her hands tremble. After searching for a long time, she can't even find the end of the wire rope on Jiang Yage. It just so happened that the pleasure boat was in a mess. Everything had happened so suddenly that everyone's minds were in a mess. No one remembered to put the two of them down. Director Big Beard, on the other hand, was calm. He was yelling at the top of his lungs as if he was pushing a prop master towards the console, trying to get him to put the two girls down. It's definitely those two. This bunch of idiots, why are they panicking? As a fan of the two of them, Qin Guang's heart couldn't help but tighten. The pleasure boat was about to sink. Once it was completely submerged, it would be impossible to put the two girls down. The others might be able to escape from the pleasure boat, but the two of them were still tied to the boat by the wire. They were going to sink to the bottom of the lake. As the pleasure boat was in the middle of the lake, the lifeguards there had just entered the water. It was a few hundred meters away. By the time they swam to the boat, it would have sunk completely. I can't care so much anymore. Qin Guang was hot-headed. He started to take off his clothes. Luckily it was summer. He was only wearing a t-shirt. Unfortunately, he was wearing pants because of the company's requirements. At this critical moment, there was nothing to be embarrassed about. He quickly took off his pants. Qin Guang stuffed his clothes and pants into the hands of the old man who was talking to him earlier. He said, "Old man, help me carry my things. I'm going to save them." After saying that, Qin Guang, wearing only his underwear, stepped onto the stone lion fence and dove into the lake. The water was at least 6 to 7 meters above the stone lion fence. Qin Guang dove into the water. His posture in the water was a perfect 80. He didn't make a big splash. He twisted his body in the water. Using the momentum of the water, he jumped far away like a fish. After living in the Sea of Moments for 20 years, he had turned a non-swimmer into a non-swimmer. This couldn't be helped. There was no land in the Sea of Moments. Almost everyone knew how to swim from birth. When Qin Guang told Captain Annie that he didn't know how to swim, the violent female captain only did one thing. She lifted her leg and kicked Qin Guang into the sea. In a world without land, swimming was the same as walking. It was a basic survival skill. 10 seconds later, Qin Guang was back on the surface of the water. He started to wave his arms and swim forward. His legs hit the surface of the water rhythmically. Every time his sturdy arms paddled, he would fiercely rush forward. He was simply like a speedboat. He set off half a minute later than the lifeguards on the other side. However, it didn't take long for him to surpass the lifeguards. Qin Guang's astonishing swimming speed caused the onlookers on his side to cry out in surprise. On the other side, the boat had already started to tilt to the side. Many people had already fallen into the water. However, what really worried people were the two girls who were still tied to the wire. Just when Qin Guang was about 50 meters away from the boat finally flipped over with a loud bang. The luckier ones who were still on the pleasure boats were able to jump out from the side of the boat. The unluckier ones were knocked down by the things on the flipped pleasure boats, causing them to sink into the water. Perhaps there were even more unlucky ones who had their clothes hooked on. Of course, no one was as miserable as the two female celebrities who were still tied to the wire. These two people were the highest from the water. As the boat flipped over, the two of them were slapped on the water one after the other. With 2 slaps, they were dragged into the water by the pole of the wire. For a moment, screams and screams could be heard all around the lake. Director Big Beard seemed to know how to swim. He desperately paddled along the side of the boat, then clenched his teeth and dived into the water again. The people in the crew who knew how to swim did the same, but they weren't professional frogmen. Moreover, they were trying to save people on a boat that was sinking. It was more likely that they would be accidentally crushed by the boat and lose themselves. In the end, their efforts would only be in vain. If that was the case, everyone else could still be saved. However, Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage were in a dangerous situation. Qin Guang felt a strong wave coming towards him and knew that the boat had finally sunk. He clenched his teeth and increased the speed at which he swung his arms. He adjusted the rhythm of his breathing. He was really in his best swimming state. Who is that? He's so fast. At that moment, the people on the other side finally noticed Qin Guang, who was quickly approaching. The people with binoculars could even clearly see the anxious expression on Qin Guang's face from time to time as he paddled quickly. At that time, the nearest lifeguard was at least 100 meters away. For a moment, many people put their hopes on Qin Guang. No one knew who started it, but cheers gradually came from the shore. Without anyone directing them, the cheers slowly became uniform. This wasn't the Olympics, but they weren't fighting for time, but human lives. The two people were now completely submerged. Although the water quality of Painting Lake was good, the visibility was less than 3 meters. Just the pole of the wire was more than 3 meters high. Qin Guang knew that although there were many people in the water, he was the only one who could save Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage in the water. There was no other reason. Since he was in this situation, he had to save the lives of these two people no matter what. Finally, he got close to the boat. At that moment, the boat was completely turned upside down. Even the bottom of the boat was already more than a meter underwater. Qin Guang calculated the time. Since Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage had sunk into the water, it had been about 20 seconds. Every second was a matter of life and death. With a fierce plunge, Qin Guang dove into the water. You guys have to hold on a little longer. Chapter 16. Qin Guang dove into the water. Even though it was summer, the water was still very cold. Qin Guang exerted strength in his legs and dove down a large distance. At this time, the pleasure boat was still in the process of sinking. About 10 seconds later, Qin Guang rushed to the side of the boat. There was a crew member struggling to get out from the side of the boat with great difficulty. He was flailing about in the water. When he touched Qin Guang's body, he panicked and tried to pull Qin Guang with all his might. Fortunately, Qin Guang was a good swimmer and had great strength. He restrained the man in one move and pushed him up. This probably helped him find the right direction. The rest would probably have to rely on him to swim to the surface. Qin Guang struggled to open his eyes in the water. He narrowed his eyes and looked around. He took in the current situation and made a decision in his heart. Underwater, even though it was afternoon, visibility was very low. Qin Guang could only vaguely see 3 people struggling under the deck of the pleasure boat. These people might have been pushed down by the boat, or their clothes or pants might have been caught by the structure of the boat, or they might have been injured in the process of the boat toppling and couldn't break free. There were 2 other people further down. They must be Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage. Before they sank into the water, the 2 of them were tightly hugging each other. However, it seemed that the shock when they hit the surface of the water was too strong, and the 2 of them were separated. Looking at them vaguely, the 2 of them didn't seem to have lost consciousness and were still struggling with great effort. Qin Guang didn't choose to save the 2 of them first. Even though they were national idols in Qin Guang's eyes, the lives of ordinary people and the lives of so-called celebrities were not important. He decided to save the other 3 crew members first. The reason was very simple. The 2 celebrities were still tied to the wire. It wouldn't be easy to save them. They were all human lives. It would be easy to save them first. If he could save one more person, it would be one more person. As for who would survive and who would die in the end, Qin Guang couldn't care less. After all, he wasn't familiar with any of the 5 people trapped in the water. He wasn't a saint. If it was Wenwen, his roommates, or even his classmates, Qin Guang would definitely save those who were closer to him first. It didn't take much effort to save the first 3 people. It only took about 30 seconds. He pulled them out. Just like the previous person, he just pushed them to the surface. At this time, the lifeguard should be almost there. When Qin Guang pushed them out, he helped them adjust their sense of direction. They basically just had to follow the direction Qin Guang gave them. People who had drowned before would understand that people who didn't know how to swim would quickly fall into a state of panic when they sank into the water. They would easily lose their sense of direction. In addition, people would always have a strong desire to breathe. However, when they sank into the water, their minds would be blank. There was only a strong desire to survive burning. However, it was this desire to survive that made things worse. The more they wanted to live, the more they struggled. They desperately wanted to breathe. They desperately opened their mouths to breathe, but they could only let the water flow through their nostrils and mouth into their stomachs. If there was no one to stop them, it was possible that they would struggle deeper and deeper into the water. Qin Guang helped these people stabilize their bodies. He found the direction to go up and gave them a push to float. With the help of many professional lifeguards, they should be almost out of danger. Next, it was time to save the two celebrities who were in the most dangerous situation. At this time, the pleasure boat had sunk to a depth of about 10 meters. It was pitch black and they couldn't even see their fingers. Fortunately, Qin Guang remembered the position of Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage, who were tied to the wire. He moved along the other side of the deck. At this time, Qin Guang had been holding his breath for almost a minute. The two people had been holding their breath for 1 minute and 20 seconds. Their lives were in danger. In the darkness, when Qin Guang approached the two of them, he was blessed by the heavens that the two of them were together again. One of them seemed to have completely lost consciousness. The other person could barely move. In the dark, Qin Guang couldn't see who it was. However, the person who could move was hugging the other person. Her hands were weakly moving around behind her, as if she wanted to help the other person untie the wire. Qin Guang's sudden approach made the person who was still conscious ecstatic. She didn't know what she was thinking, but she suddenly pushed the woman in her arms into Qin Guang's arms. This woman. She actually wants me to save the other person and doesn't care about herself anymore. Oh my God. Qin Guang had seen his fair share of good and bad people, but he never imagined that there would be such a person in the world. In the face of a life and death crisis, there was actually someone who was willing to sacrifice herself and give the hope of survival to the other person. She didn't seem to think at all, nor did she have the slightest hesitation. She did it without hesitation. Before this, Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage were just two female celebrities who could sing well in his eyes. But this time, it stabbed into the soft spot in his heart. He had long heard that the two of them grew up together. Although they weren't biological sisters, their relationship was deeper than family. Now, it seemed that even real family members might not be able to do this. However, since he had swum all the way here and both of them were beside him, Qin Guang naturally couldn't only save one person. Imitating the previous woman's movements, Qin Guang felt around the unconscious person's body. He was not a professional and he didn't know how the wire rope was fixed on a person's body. He thought that there must be some special switch and it wouldn't be a simple rope knot. Time was tight and he didn't have any thoughts of not touching a man and a woman, nor did he have any evil thoughts. He searched the woman's body through the thin ancient dress, along the fixed band of the wire. He didn't even miss the crotch. After all, it was dark in the water. Sometimes even Qin Guang didn't know where he was touching. Finally, he found a secret button on the woman's lower abdomen. It seemed to be a bit tight. He had never operated this thing before, so he had to use brute force to pull it open. After freeing this person, Qin Guang held her with one hand and paddled to the woman who had floated 2 or 3 meters away with the other hand. At this time, another 10 seconds had passed, and the woman had not completely fainted. Her hands were still unconsciously touching her lower abdomen. However, her movements had become extremely slow, and even after touching for a long time, she still couldn't find the place. As Qin Guang approached, she seemed to suddenly wake up a little, and her body wrapped around Qin Guang like an octopus. Unfortunately, before she had time to hug him tightly, her body stiffened again. Her neck suddenly rose and her neck turned backward. This time she completely fainted. This posture made it convenient for Qin Guang. He first used his feet to clamp the other woman, and then stretched out his hands to touch the woman's waist and abdomen. He repeated the same trick and freed her from the wire. Immediately, Qin Guang pulled one woman with each hand and stepped on the wire support column. He suddenly kicked his legs, jumped out from the side of the boat and began to rush to the water. At this time, Qin Guang had been in the water for more than a minute and a half, and the two women had been drowning for nearly 2 minutes. Whether they could survive or not really depended on God's will. Chapter 17. Although there was no way to paddle with both hands with Qin Guang's swimming ability, even if he only used his legs, his speed was still extremely fast. He had also held his breath for a long time. After repeated high-intensity movements in the water, he was extremely exhausted, but the two women in his hands were getting more and more dangerous. He could not rest. In particular, the woman on Qin Guang's right side, who had already fainted, was in the worst situation. Qin Guang's arm went around the woman's back and used the crook of his arm to hold her, but his palm was pressed on her chest. The woman's heartbeat was already extremely weak, as if it would stop at any moment. The other woman's condition was slightly better, but not much better. When Qin Guang finally rushed out of the water with the two women, the onlookers by the lake couldn't help but cheer. Those with sharp eyes had already recognized the two women in Qin Guang's arms as Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage, the two female stars. Not far ahead, the lifeguards were also approaching one after another. At the front was a lifeboat. Director Big Beard was lying next to the lifeboat looking around anxiously. He knew that when the boat overturned, the two female stars were still tied to the wire. He was afraid that this time they would not be able to survive. If these two women died in the process of shooting his movie, he was afraid that his career as a director would come to an end. This was just a small matter. Big Beard, who knew a little about the background of these two women, felt his hair stand on end when he thought about it. His fate would not be as simple as losing his career. When he saw Qin Guang float out of the water with the two women in his arms, Director Big Beard could not believe his eyes. He really did not expect that someone would be able to rescue them, even in his dreams. It was really a blessing from God. However, the person who was the most surprised was not Big Beard, but the onlookers near the place where Qin Guang had entered the water. These people had seen this white stripe enter the water. He was further away from the place where the boat sank, and he entered the water later. The lifeguards who had entered the water earlier had just caught the other people who had floated up from the water, but this man actually rescued the two people who were still tied to the wire. This guy was not a human at all but a Murloc, right? Oh my God. Hurry. Hurry. Bring them up. Big Beard shouted at the top of his lungs. He almost wanted to grab the steering wheel of the lifeboat. Qin Guang was also a little exhausted at this time. Seeing the lifeboats approaching quickly, he first turned his head and looked around. He first made sure that the 4 people he had sent up previously had lifeguards beside them, then he felt at ease. Immediately he continued to kick and grab the 2 people and lean towards the lifeboat. It had to be said that not everyone could be like Qin Guang, who could hold a bowl of water calmly in his heart. There was actually a lifeguard who tried to throw away the people in his hands and ran to help Qin Guang. When Qin Guang saw this, he was instantly furious. He kicked the water and shouted angrily, "What are you doing? Look at the people in your hands. Whose F***king life is not a life?" Although his hands were pressed on the 2 stars' full breasts from beginning to end, it was not that he was reluctant to give up the tofu in his hands. With his swimming ability, he could have easily sent the 2 of them to the lifeboat by himself. The others had struggled to get up, but you left them behind and ran to me to do something meaningless. Do you still have the qualifications to be a lifeguard? Unless I can't hold on anymore, then that's more like it. The lifeguard was scolded by Qin Guang. He also knew that his actions were a bit excessive, so he quickly turned back and did his job. When he turned back to look in the direction of Qin Guang, his pupils shrank. "So fast. You're so fast to catch 2 people. Who the hell are you? Are you an Olympic champion?" In the blink of an eye, Qin Guang had actually rushed forward 5 or 6 meters and was already close to the lifeboat. Director Big Beard was about to reach out to pick them up, but Qin Guang's legs fiercely stepped on the water and his whole body jumped up half a meter. He threw the woman, who was in a better condition, onto the boat. This was an air cushion lifeboat, so there was no need to worry about people falling. Qin Guang himself and the other woman sank a little, but his left hand fiercely grabbed the side of the lifeboat and shouted, "You all go to the other side, I'm going to get on the boat." Big Beard and the other 2 people on the lifeboat knew that Qin Guang was going to exert force, so they quickly moved to the side. At this moment, Qin Guang exerted force with his left hand and jumped with himself and the woman in his right hand. He jumped onto the lifeboat like a carp leaping over the dragon gate. The lifeboat, which was originally not big, suddenly became a little crowded with 3 more people. Qin Guang sat next to the 2 women. Director Big Beard and the other 2 people didn't even have a place to stand. "Get out of the way. Get out of the way. These 2 people are going to die. Keep the air flowing. Are you the director? You look like a director. Is there anyone else in the water? Hurry up and see if everyone is here. Hurry up. We don't have much time." Qin Guang was completely in the zone. His mind was only thinking about saving these people, so his attitude was very bad. "I don't care who you are, I don't care what kind of director you are. I'm the 2nd officer of the N Royal. I've lived in a world without land for 20 years. I'm a professional. I want to save people." If it was a normal drowning accident, the lifeboats would be able to deal with it. Qin Guang was afraid that there were still people in the pleasure boat. In such an emergency situation, he couldn't count on anyone else. Qin Guang could only do it himself. Even though he knew that it was probably too late to go into the water, he still wanted to see the people, dead or alive. He was anxious. Being yelled at by a young man like Chen Guang, Director Big Beard's expression was sluggish. He was about to get angry, but when he saw the anxious expression on Chen Guang's face, he knew that Chen Guang was being kind and wanted to save people. He quickly came back to his senses, turned his head to look around the water, and shouted at the director of the second lifeboat, "Old Ma! Has everyone been saved? Is everyone here?" Old Ma shouted with a hoarse voice, "Everyone is here, everyone is here. Only Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage are left. Everyone is here, everyone is here." Director Big Beard's heart was slightly relieved, but when he turned his head to look at Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage who were unconscious, his heart tightened again. The two of them have been in the water for the longest time, so they are in the most danger. Get to the shore. The doctors of the crew are on the shore. After saying that, Director Big Beard wanted to get closer, but Chen Guang pushed him away and grabbed the girl's chest with his left hand. He said anxiously, "It's good that everyone is here. Go away. Her heart has stopped. Don't block me from saving people. Get out of my way." Chen Guang was talking about the girl who had fainted first. At this time, her condition was extremely bad. Once her heart stopped, it meant that she was about to die. At this time, Chen Guang recognized that she was Jin Shirui, the sweet-tempered girl in the lefty and righty duo. When he heard Chen Guang say that Jin Shirui's heart had stopped, Big Beard felt weak all over and almost fainted. No matter how fast the lifeboat was, it would take at least dozens of seconds to reach the shore. It was too late. It was over. Regardless of whether Big Beard was about to collapse or not, Chen Guang had already lifted Jin Shirui and turned her body over. He half knelt and pressed his knees against Jin Shirui's abdomen. His hands pressed hard on her back and a stream of water was forced out of her mouth. At the same time, Chen Guang's right hand touched her back and found the hidden button of her bra. He didn't have time to take off her clothes, so he used his hands to break the button. Immediately, Chen Guang laid Jin Shirui down, leaned down, and put his mouth in front of Jin Shirui. Both of his hands were pressed on her body. Left hand on her chest, right hand on her abdomen. His right hand first exerted force, then his left hand pushed up diagonally, and another stream of water came out of her mouth. With these two seemingly simple movements, Chen Guang had already squeezed 70 to 80% of the water out of the woman's abdomen. Chen Guang's movements were unbelievably skillful. Director Big Beard saw that there was a chance, so he could only pin all his hopes on Chen Guang, who looked like a professional at first glance. Although in his heart he secretly felt that when this guy was saving people, he took advantage of them as if they didn't cost him anything. His actions of touching a dignified celebrity was really a bit. But Chen Guang's eyes were extremely clear, without any unnecessary feelings. Big Beard didn't want to interrupt. As long as these two could survive, even if they wanted to pursue the matter of being taken advantage of, he had to help this guy take the trouble and explain it to the two celebrities. On the other side, Chen Guang had already pressed both of his hands on Jin Shirui's chest, exerting force. From time to time he would lean down and pinch her nose to do artificial respiration. Finally, with a violent cough, Jin Shirui moved. That was how drowning was. As long as one recovered in the first moment, it was basically no big deal. It was a long story, but in fact it was only a matter of 10 seconds. To be able to turn misfortune into blessing, it was all thanks to Chen Guang's fast actions and professional rescue methods. After saving Jin Shirui, Chen Guang immediately turned his attention to Jiang Yage. Jiang Yage's consciousness in the water was much better than Jin Shirui's, so she didn't take in as much water. After she lost consciousness, she took in some water. When she floated up, her heartbeat hadn't stopped, but her physiological functions had become very weak. First, the water in her stomach was forced out. Before Chen Guang could do artificial respiration for her, she woke up faintly and vomited and coughed crazily. Of course, she still had to take off her bra. Then Chen Guang put the two of them on the lifeboat. He sat cross-legged in the middle, pressed his hands on their lower abdomens and quickly pushed them up. With 2 pushes, the water in their stomachs was pushed out. This time he could finally breathe a sigh of relief. They were both alive. What he didn't know was that Director Big Beard and the lifeguards who were hiding at both ends of the lifeboat were extremely jealous. It turned out that when Chen Guang pushed the water twice, his palms naturally couldn't escape from the 2 girls' chests. Because their bras were removed, and they were wearing loose ancient dresses, one could even clearly see that their breasts were deformed from time to time as Chen Guang's palms brushed past them. This guy, he's really 2 at the same time. However, it was all thanks to this savior. God bless, at least no one died. This kind of luck should be enjoyed by him. The bearded director thought so in his heart. Chapter 18. When the two girls' breathing became more and more intense, and even Jiang Yage began to use her own strength to prop herself up, Qin Guang retracted his hands. He raised his head and looked around. After making sure that everyone was safe, Qin Guang's tense nerves immediately relaxed. Well, it's good that no one died. Cough, 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 cough. At this time, Jiang Yage and Jin Shirue both sat up straight and were coughing desperately. Turning his head over, Qin Guang saw the two's bountiful chests trembling as they coughed. Because their clothes were wet, the two's clothes were firmly stuck to their bodies. Their shapes were prominent, and their breasts were undulating. Qin Guang swallowed his saliva, and his heart was like a monkey. Jin Shirue's was slightly bigger than Jiang Yage's, but Jiang Yage's was not small either. The most commendable thing was that the two girls' breasts were tall and straight, and their elasticity was excellent. This must be the result of their frequent dance practice, right? Qin Guang's whole body quivered. Damn it, I am a glorious hero who saved the damsel in distress. How can I have such dirty thoughts in my head? However, thinking about it carefully, that feeling was really great, bah. Qin Guang hurriedly shook his head, trying to calm himself down. Damn it, something is wrong. My crotch is so cool. Qin Guang looked down and suddenly realized that the old man had taken off his clothes when he went into the water. Now he was only wearing an unsightly underwear. Not good. The old man's power was about to go out of control. The tent was about to be set up. The underwear was not very useful. If he lost control of his power, he was afraid that he would be embarrassed. Qin Guang was extremely embarrassed. He hurriedly pretended to be an old monk in meditation, and sat down cross-legged as if he was recuperating. It was a pity that the two noble girls had just barely survived from drowning, and they didn't even have anyone to help them up. Without Qin Guang's permission, Director Big Beard and the other two lifeguards did not dare to get close. Qin Guang's mind started to become restless because of the rare moment of relaxation. No one would have thought that Qin Guang, who was as dazzling as the sun just a moment ago, had turned into an awkward little brother because he couldn't control the messy thoughts in his mind. It couldn't be helped. The two young and beautiful stars were on his left and right, and because of their coughing and trembling, they bumped into Qin Guang from time to time. However, he was basically naked now. Wherever he was touched, it was a real skin-to-skin contact. It must be said that in the momentary sea, it wasn't that he hadn't touched women before, but the situation now was different. There were so many people surrounding the shore. The old man's heroic image definitely couldn't be destroyed in a day. The old man definitely couldn't be discovered with a tent in his crotch. There might even be people taking pictures of him on the shore. If it was uploaded to the internet, he would be screwed. I say, Director Big Beard, you guys should come over and help. What are the three of you staring at him for? This is clearly your job, okay? The lifeboat was getting closer and closer to the shore. There were already many people who couldn't control themselves and moved closer to the shore. It even caused trouble for the other people who were being rescued or those who had swum to the shore. The management committee of Painting Lake had already taken action urgently. The nearby police station and police station all dispatched their personnel. They had already arrived one after another and were helping to control the scene to prevent the crowd from swarming over and causing trouble for the rescue work. The crowd was gradually forced back, trying to make space for the people who were rescued from the water. However, they were still very close to the shore. The people who were the most worried were Jin Shirue and Jiang Yage. On one hand, it was because the two of them were more famous. More importantly, when the boat sank, the two of them were in the most dangerous situation. Seeing the lifeboat with the two women gradually approaching, the crowd became excited again. However, at least they were able to control their emotions and didn't crazily push forward. However, many people who reacted quickly had already taken out their phones and started taking pictures of the lifeboat. That wasn't all. After all, although the two women were wearing ancient dresses, they weren't translucent. Director Big Beard and the other two people were busy docking the lifeboat and didn't care so much. If they wanted to take pictures, then let them. It wasn't a big deal. Only Qin Guang, who was only wearing a pair of briefs, took a closer look. Oh my god. As far as the eye could see, there were countless phones and countless cameras. If these people took a clear picture of my face and uploaded it to the internet, how could I face others? Could they put down their phones and talk properly? Of course not. Hey. That Big Beard, yes, it's you, Big Beard. Qin Guang suddenly had an idea. He opened his mouth and shouted at Director Big Beard. Perhaps Qin Guang's swift and decisive rescue had left a deep impression on this director. This big shot in the film and television industry didn't realize that the person who was talking to him was actually a young man. When he heard his anxious tone, he thought there was something wrong, so he quickly turned around and asked, "Sir, what's the matter? Can you give me your pants?" That's right. Qin Guang was thinking about this famous director's pants. Although it looked very loose, it could at least cover his embarrassment. What? Big Beard was stunned. He thought that this was the follow-up action of Qin Guang's rescue. It might be that Jin Shirue and Jiang Yage were injured and needed to be bandaged, so he immediately prepared to take off his belt. Something's wrong? Even if you want a bandage, you should ask for my white shirt, not my pants. He was also a shrewd person, so when he calmed down and saw Qin Guang in his briefs, he instantly understood what was going on. His forehead was covered in sweat and he nearly fell for Qin Guang's trick. At the end of the day, I'm already an old man, and you're a little too much. Halfway through taking off his belt, Big Beard fastened it again. He only shook his head like a little wife who was wronged. Qin Guang's face darkened. He knew that his plot didn't succeed. Big brother. I saved so many people's lives. You can't trick me. At least give me your shirt and let me cover myself. However, Big Beard was already wary of him. No matter what he said, it didn't work. What's worse was that this famous director, who had a serious occupational disease, actually took the opportunity to size up Qin Guang's body. Hey, you have to say this young man doesn't have any fat on his body. His body is quite perfect. Coupled with this face, although not very handsome, it's quite pleasing to look at. He is a good candidate to act in martial arts. As Big Beard's imagination ran wild, the lifeboat was getting closer and closer to the shore. Qin Guang saw that the situation was not good. He covered his face and cursed, "Ungrateful. The world is cold. I'm leaving first." After cursing, he jumped out of the lifeboat and dived into the water. He dived into the water and dived to the shore. At least he, the underwear man, had to get out of the public's sight. It wasn't that he wanted to learn from Lei Feng and not leave his name behind. He really didn't have such a high level of awareness. It was just that he was only wearing a pair of briefs, so there was no way he could be photographed. Fortunately, he was good at diving. In order to escape the fate of being the underwear man, he dived for dozens of meters before he quietly came to the shore from the other side. Although the crowd was a little surprised that he, the hero, had suddenly jumped into the water. Everyone's attention was on the two female celebrities, so they didn't pay much attention to it. Qin Guang popped his head out of the water and saw the two women walking to the shore with the help of their respective agents and assistants. There were ambulances on the side of the road, ready and waiting. The others also settled down on the shore one after another. After making sure that he was safe, he was completely relieved. He carefully climbed to the shore and planned to sneak away. He didn't expect to be discovered by the crowd that couldn't squeeze through. No matter what, he was a hero, so people came up to him one after another. "Young man, you're good. You're a good Samaritan. Good job." A mature middle-aged man came up and patted Qin Guang's shoulder, expressing his admiration. "Big brother is so amazing. Thank you, Big Brother, for saving these two big sisters. I like listening to their songs the most." This was a cute little girl who was holding her hands together and looking up at him with admiration. "Good job, young man. Our Wujing city is proud of you." This seemed to be some kind of leader. After settling down, he immediately turned around to encourage the Good Samaritan. He was really a parent and knew what he was doing. With these people's very enthusiastic behavior, more and more people gathered around Qin Guang. In the face of this situation, Qin Guang only wanted to say one sentence: "You guys should at least let me put on my pants." When he noticed that some people had started to take out their mobile phones, his face turned pale. It was really a blessing from God. Another old man wearing a straw hat came up to him and was about to praise him. "Young man, sir, I'm sorry. Let me borrow your straw hat." Qin Guang screamed. He couldn't care so much. He grabbed the straw hat from the old man's head and put it on his head. He lowered the brim of the hat, shrunk his neck, and rushed out of the crowd. "My God. It's so scary. I don't want to be an underwear man. Help. I want to go home." Qin Guang roared in his heart. No one thought that this great hero would actually break down. For a moment, no one stopped him and he rushed out. Rushing out of the crowd, Qin Guang pressed the brim of his hat with one hand and pulled his underwear with the other. The panic in his heart was even greater than when he was fighting for his life on the An Royal. However, the extremely enthusiastic crowd behind him had no intention of letting him go. With the leader of the Painting Lake district taking the lead, they all turned around and chased after him. A spectacle appeared on the road around the lake. A naked man, wearing a big straw hat and only a pair of briefs, ran in front with his long white legs. A group of enthusiastic people followed behind him, shouting something like, "Hero, please stop," and so on. The crowd that had just arrived and didn't know what was going on were confused. Could it be that they weren't supposed to say that they were going to catch that indecent naked lunatic? Feeling the warm summer wind blowing on his butt through the gap in his underwear at this moment, Qin Guang only thought of one sentence. As expected of the second mate of the instantaneous sea, I have no regrets in my life. I thought back to that afternoon when I ran naked under the sunset. That was my lost youth. Chapter 19. Qin Guang, who was in a panic, wanted to die. When he went into the water, he didn't think that it would end up like this. Damn it, if I had known, I wouldn't have taken off my pants. However, he also knew that if he hadn't taken off his pants, they would have become extremely heavy after being soaked in water. It would have seriously affected his swimming and diving speed, and he might not have been able to save Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage. Fortunately, for some reason he actually ran over to the bearded director and the others again. After a simple rescue, Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage had recovered quite a bit. They could even support themselves and slowly move forward with the help of their female manager. This was what happened to drowning. Unless they were deprived of oxygen for too long and their physiological functions deteriorated, as long as they were treated in time, they would recover quickly. There wouldn't be any sequelae. After the team doctor examined Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage, he felt that there was no need for them to take the ambulance to the hospital. The two of them didn't want to make a fuss, so they said that they didn't need to go to the hospital. The hospital was very cooperative. At the same time, to make everyone feel at ease, they moved the equipment from the ambulance and arranged for the crew to do an electrocardiogram in the tea house next to the lake. Therefore, Big Beard, who was leading a group of people to the tea house next to the lake, looked up and saw Qin Guang, who was only wearing briefs, running over. After making sure that everyone was safe, Big Beard was in a good mood. When he saw Qin Guang, he remembered the scene when Qin Guang tried to trick him into taking his pants. He couldn't help but grin. Following Big Beard's gaze, Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage also turned their heads to look in that direction. Because Qin Guang was facing them when he ran, some of the extra body tissues inevitably swayed. Coupled with the slightly loose briefs, it was a strong three-dimensional picture. The huge man swayed back and forth like a wind chime hanging on the wall. It moved with the wind and had its own sound and light effects. Well, there's nothing more to say. It's a beautiful picture. Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage's manager, Sister Zhou, quickly stood in front of the two women, trying to help them cover this unsightly side. Brother. Here. Director Big Beard was not an ungrateful person. This man was in such a miserable situation because he tried his best to save them. He quickly shouted. While shouting, he also waved his hand and called Old Ma, the director of site management, to hurry and help him. He was in such an awkward situation and ran away desperately. Wasn't it because he didn't want to be photographed wearing only his underwear? The crew owed him such a big favor. It was too much to leave him in the lurch. Hearing the slightly familiar voice, Qin Guang looked up and saw the iconic big face of Director Big Beard. Without thinking too much, he quickly followed Old Ma, who came to help. The crew was blocked by the police and security personnel, so they naturally wouldn't let anyone else get close. The leader of the Painting Lake district also knew that the people on his side had caused trouble for the hero, so he helped to appease the people. Thus Qin Guang was safe. My big brother, you've made me miserable. Qin Guang came to Director Big Beard's side with a sad face. He had lived for 20 years, and this was the first time he had been in such an awkward situation. Fortunately, his face was definitely not photographed. Thank God. Director Big Beard smiled and patted Qin Guang's shoulder with great excitement and familiarity. You have a good idea, boy. Anyway, I'm also an old man. How can I run on the street in only my underwear like a young man like you? Besides, you have a good figure. You have the material to be an actor. It's no big deal to show it to others. Don't worry about these details. You have to know that as an artist, this is a common thing. Many male actors are much more exposed on the screen than you are. Big Beard was definitely not such an amiable and easygoing person, especially as a big shot in the circle. His attitude towards strangers could be said to be quite unfriendly. He was so friendly with Qin Guang purely because Qin Guang had saved his life. In addition, Qin Guang's unreasonable character made him feel friendly. I really thank you. Is this how you treat your savior? How can I do that? Didn't I help you? Oma, hurry up and take him in. Find him some clothes first and ask the restaurant to quickly prepare ginger soup. Although it's summer now, it's easy to get sick when it's cold and hot. Everyone should drink a bowl of ginger soup to nourish themselves. This little brother is our big benefactor. Xiao Lu, the four of you, and the two famous flowers of our crew were all saved by him. Ma, you have to be more attentive. Remember, be more attentive. The grace of a drop of water in our crew will be returned with a gushing spring. Director Big Beard winked at the stage supervisor Old Ma meaningfully. Old Ma got the order and understood tacitly. He took the lead and ran inside with Chen Guang. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. He was too lazy to waste time with this disrespectful director. He just wanted to get into the crowd as soon as possible, quickly get some clothes to cover his body, and then return to his car. The place where he parked just now was by the roadside. Without a doubt, it was illegal parking. There was a possibility that he would be dragged to the traffic police station at any time. In addition, his clothes, pants, and even his car keys were in the hands of the old man. He felt uneasy. Chen Guang did not notice that in the crowd, there was a pair of big shy eyes quietly looking at his body, especially at his swaying briefs. That's right, this person was Jiang Yage. Jin Shiyue was in a daze. She did not know how she was saved. When she woke up on the shore, Chen Guang had already jumped off the boat. Then he was surrounded by his assistant and agent. She was still in a daze. It was not until she heard Big Beard's words that Jin Shiyue realized that this little brother, who was only wearing underwear, was her savior. Jiang Yage was different. When Chen Guang first approached her in the water, she was completely awake. Her feelings were the most profound. At this time, she peeked at Chen Guang's body and recalled the thoughts in her mind at that time. Her face could not help but blush like a ripe apple. At that time, she really thought that she and Jin Shiyue were doomed. At that time, she first thought that if there was someone who could save her in such a situation, she would repay him with her body. No matter how old he was, what he looked like, or what his identity was, as long as he was a man, as long as he was willing, then she would repay him with her body. Of course, later on, in a daze, when she realized that between her and Jin Shiyue, only one could survive, she left this hope to Jin Shiyue. Later on, when she opened her eyes, she could not believe that she was still alive. She only vaguely remembered that when she was at her most desperate, most painful, and was about to completely give up, a warm arm caught her. Then she woke up. Now that she saw the young man who had saved her again, Jiang Yage thought of the things she had thought about before she died. For a moment, her heart was pounding, especially when she secretly looked at the young man's figure and his swaying naughty thing, which made her blush even more. Are all men's things so big? I heard that they can become even bigger? If she gave them this thing, wouldn't she be stuffed to death? Jiang Yage. What nonsense are you thinking about in your head? Evildoer, quickly stop your supernatural power. Yarrow, is he the person who saved us? Jin Shiyue, who was at the side, did not notice that Jiang Yage's state was not right. She also stared at Chen Guang's back with wide eyes, and her expression was very complicated. Jiang Yage grunted, and then turned her eyes back reluctantly. Let's go find him later. At least we have to thank him personally. Jin Shiyue said. When Jiang Yage heard this, she felt that Jin Shiyue's idea was really good. In this way she could openly say a few words to this person, right? And? Jiang Yage nodded heavily, but she didn't notice that Jin Shiyue's face also had an abnormal blush. Let me go for this kind of thing. You two just got out of danger. You two need to have a good rest. Sister Zhou, who was at the side, didn't understand the real thoughts of the two women at all. Jin Shiyue and Jiang Yage shook their heads. Jin Shiyue frowned and said, "This is not good. After all, he is our savior. We should go by ourselves. We can't be rash. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the media will say that we don't understand etiquette." Jiang Yage wanted to say something, but since Jin Shiyue had said it like this, she naturally didn't need to continue talking. I just don't know if this little brother's character is good or not. What does he think of my identity as a celebrity? There will definitely be some novelty in the beginning, but after getting along for a long time, will he feel too much pressure? What should I do? Jiang Yage's mind was a little confused. She was 30% nervous and 70% shy. Chapter 20. Chen Guang didn't expect that his two right-hand stars would fall in love with him. After all, in his opinion, these people in the entertainment circle were like canaries that could only be watched from afar. He was just a nobody, so he shouldn't expect to repay them by marrying them for saving his life. From what Director Big Beard had said, it seemed that he wanted old Ma to give him some reward. Chen Guang wasn't a good person who didn't leave any traces of his good deeds. Besides, he was really short of money now. He had spent so much effort and made such a big embarrassment to save them, so it was natural for him to get some reward. Although there was no sign of this matter yet, Qin Guang was ready to accept it. But the most important thing right now was to put on his clothes. Old Ma was truly a shrewd person. He didn't even need Qin Guang to say anything and had already found a set of clothes for him. It's just that the style of the clothes looks a little strange. Looking at the golden armor in front of him, Qin Guang was also confused. Brother Ma, this is the costume of the crew, right? Don't make trouble. Just give me some casual clothes. Thank you very much. The workmanship of the clothes is so good, and they must be valuable. I'm afraid that they will rob me if I wear them. Ah, brother, you are so humorous. But I really can't help it. We are shooting a movie about ancient times, you know? It's about ancient love, gratitude and grudges and battles on the battlefield. Among the props and costumes prepared by our crew, the only ones that can be worn by men are these armors. Today's scene has some ancient casual clothes. Unfortunately, everyone fell into the water just now, and they were all soaked so they couldn't wear them. You just put up with it. Brother, look at the color of the armor. It's shiny. Beautiful, right? Handsome, right? Young man, you have such a great figure and you're good at swimming. I can tell that you're good at acting. Old Ma understood what Director Big Beard meant. At this moment he was already planning to include Qin Guang. If it was some other time and his car wasn't parked in such an awkward position, Qin Guang might really be interested in listening to this talkative Brother Ma's words. Perhaps he might even be able to use this opportunity to sneak into the production team and earn some extra money. He heard that extras were also rich, and with how he had saved Brother Ma's life, the bearded director seemed to be an honest person, so he shouldn't be mistreating him. However, the old man's car was in danger of being towed away at any moment. I was flustered. Okay, Brother Ma, I admit it. I'll just wear these clothes. Don't say anything else. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. I'll return the clothes to you later. It'll only take about 10 minutes. Qin Guang waited for a long time. He was quite disappointed when Brother Ma only said that he wanted him to join the crew, but he didn't take out the money. But you can't let me take the initiative to ask for it. A man needs face and a tree needs its bark. You have to give me a way out. Old Ma was indeed Old Ma. Seeing that Qin Guang didn't want to stay, he magically took out a thick stack of red notes from his drenched satchel. They were neatly stacked and even tied with white paper. At first glance, Qin Guang knew that it was 50,000 yuan. Immediately, Qin Guang rejoiced in his heart. It was worth it to run around the lake naked today. You can't really say that he's a cliché. If he was still the second generation of a rich family, tens of thousands of yuan wouldn't be a big deal to him. But now that his family is so short of money, especially with his mother's medical fees still waiting to be raised, if he can get 50,000 yuan for emergency treatment, at least it can let his family live comfortably for 3 months. He didn't think too much about it. To be honest, Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage's lives were worth more than 50 million yuan a year, not to mention 50,000 yuan. With their current fame and status, their annual income was more than 50 million yuan. Qin Guang wasn't a calculative person. For this kind of thing, if someone was willing to pay, it meant that they understood the ways of the world. If they didn't pay and only thanked him profusely, it couldn't be said that they were stingy. It was just that some people did things in such a way. Fortunately, this was a crew that was not short of money, and there was a smart stage director who could take out 50,000 yuan, which was exactly what Qin Guang wanted. How can I accept this? Oh, Qin Guang said politely with a smile. Old Ma thought he was really going to refuse. When he was about to stuff the money into Qin Guang's arms, he saw that Qin Guang had already stuffed 50,000 yuan into the lining of the stomach of the golden shining armor. Damn it, this is another good young man who has been poisoned by the extensive and profound Chinese black culture. Although he says no, his body is as honest as Pinocchio. But you have to know that the value of the costume you're wearing is much more than 50,000 yuan. Brother Ma, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first. My car is still parked by the lake. I'm afraid that something bad will happen if I stay here for too long. I'll leave first. See you later. Qin Guang was about to slip away after saying that. Old Ma couldn't stay even if he wanted to. On the other side, Qin Guang was about to rush out of the tea house, but he was caught by Director Big Beard at the door. Of course, as the head of the crew, the director had to comfort the crew members at this time, properly arrange for some of the slightly injured people, negotiate with the staff of the scenic spot, and investigate the responsibility of the gaily painting boat rental company. He was really busy. Even so, Director Big Beard still put aside the matter at hand and grabbed Qin Guang, who was about to slip away. Oh, little brother, the effect of wearing this costume is quite good. If you put a bun on your head, you really look like a general in our film. I see that your body is tough, and when you shouted at me when you were saving people just now, it was quite domineering. How about it? Do you want to play a small role in my film? Director Big Beard said happily. He counted again and confirmed that the most seriously injured members of the crew today were only sprained legs and bumped waists. It was said that one who survived a disaster was bound to have good fortune later, so Big Beard was in a very good mood. What a joke. In such a big accident there were almost no casualties in the end. It was simply a miracle in the history of shipwreck accidents. It was all thanks to this brave little brother who saved people. Otherwise, if the two little sweethearts on his left and right hands were killed, the matter would immediately be 10,000 times worse. Now he wanted to pull Qin Guang into his own crew, which meant that he really wanted to help him. It could also be regarded as repaying this brother's great kindness. In addition, his appearance was really good, and there was no need to worry about his martial arts skills. If he played an unimportant role in this film, he would at most be given a few lines, which was just right. In this way he could naturally give him some more compensation, and at the same time he could try to pull him into this circle. It didn't matter if he didn't know how to act or didn't learn it. Anyway, I won't give you a close-up of your face. No matter how bad it is, you can still get something out of it with a few NGs. With my personal guidance, how can you not be able to film it? Apart from that, he had been bossed around by this little brother before, and he had almost tricked him into becoming a small actor under his command. He wanted to take this opportunity to give this little brat a chance to be bossed around. Otherwise, it would be hard to find a legitimate reason to take revenge. Qin Guang was not stupid. The layer of support in Big Beard's words could not be more obvious. Qin Guang could not help but feel touched. He had misunderstood the people in the entertainment industry too much in the past. With this brother's character of repaying kindness, he was definitely a good person. However, he was not in a hurry to agree to this matter. For a challenge like acting, he had no confidence at all. He was very familiar with director Big Beard. He should have seen him on TV often. He guessed that he was a famous director and he could not destroy his signature rice bowl. Is there money for a guest role? Is it a lot? *CK. Where's my integrity? I clearly wanted to reject him in my heart, but why did my mouth say such words? Big Beard smiled and gave Qin Guang a thumbs up. Not bad, young man. You know what to do. Of course there's money for a guest role and it's not a small amount. The crew's budget is also very sufficient. As long as you can last more than 30 seconds of the scene, I will prepare 100,000 yuan for you. How about it? This is a big production with an investment of hundreds of millions, a big film. Oh my uncle, this matter is settled. I'll go and move my car to a new place and look for you later. Are you going to film later? Qin Guang grinned. 30 seconds. The old man was a big shot who had lasted in the sea of moment for 20 years. Wasn't it just a film? Wasn't it just 30 seconds? 100,000 yuan. Looks like we can't film today. Everyone needs to settle down. This way we still have about 7 to 8 scenes in Wujing, and it will probably take another month. Leave me your number and I will call you in 2 days when it's about time. You can go back first. I'm busy here. But I, Deng Xiaojiang, am a man of my word. But as you can see, I'm also a very busy man. When I have time I will slowly chat with you. Alright, you don't have to rush to return this costume today. Anyway, when you come for the audition in a few days, I have arranged this role for you. It's just right. You can wear it for a few days to get used to it. Seeing that the matter was settled, Big Beard Deng's heart also felt at ease. Qin Guang smiled. He didn't disturb Big Beard anymore. He left his number and turned to walk out. Actually, with 50,000 yuan in his pocket, thinking that he could get 100,000 yuan in a few days, even if it was a little stuffy wearing this armor in the summer, his heart felt refreshed and comfortable. Turning his head to look at the painted lake, he thought to himself, when will another crew come and sink it again? On this side, when Qin Guang had just left, Jin Shiyue and Jiang Yage hadn't had a good rest yet, so they dragged themselves out of the special resting room to look for Qin Guang. However, when they asked Big Beard Deng, they were quite disappointed that he had already left. Jiang Yage angrily stomped her foot on Big Beard's instep. Why did you let him go? Jin Shiyue was also very unhappy, but her temper was not as bad as Jiang Yage's. She just said helplessly, we wanted to thank him properly. I just asked Sister Zhou to prepare some cash. So, what should we do? Big Beard Deng was amused. Ladies, don't worry. I will let him come to the audition in a few days. If you have anything to say, it won't be too late to talk about it then. There are still many opportunities. With Big Beard Deng's life experience, it was not difficult to see that this young female star, Jiang Yage, seemed to have a different idea. He secretly felt happy for the young man, but also worried for him. If this kind of thing really led to a good relationship, it could be regarded as a good story. But looking at the young man's clothes, his financial condition seemed to be very ordinary. If he remembered correctly, there seemed to be a pinky-sized hole in the back of the young man's underwear. Although Jiang Yage was a star on the surface, her background was very shocking. Jin Shuiwa was similar. This kind of thing might not be a good thing for that young man. Forget it, let's not try to figure out the world of young people. Didn't big stars marry poor boys? I'm just an old bag of bones, it's better not to get involved in such a high-end rich family story. The water is a little deep and I can't get involved. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.